read that Indian humanitarian relief reached Papua New Guinea after one of their natural disasters. Off the coast of Yemen and Somalia, India had deployed 12 naval ships recently to counter piracy and other threats. So whichever domain you take, India is really contributing to the shared collective concerns.
And that's very encouraging to hear, Ambassador. We will, of course, get you back on stage to hear more about, you touched upon the leadership group for industry transition, and I think that's something which would be very interesting for our audience to hear as well. So in the second session, we would like to hear more on that. But thank you so much, Ambassador Lal, for answering these questions, and thank you for being a part of Engaging India at Almedalen.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so how does Sweden view India and its long-standing relationship? So we got in touch with the ambassador of Sweden to India. He's in New Delhi, but he was kind enough to send us his message. And if we are ready, we can play the ambassador's message as well.
Namaste, Almedalen. I'm delighted to be here on stage today together with my colleague and friend, Ambassador Tanmaya Lal. The theme for this year, Samband for Climate Action, is very, very pertinent. I send this message to you from New Delhi in India, and we have been living under a heat wave for weeks. That really shows the need and urgency for joint action when it comes to the climate. Sweden and India have a long and rich history of cooperation. Our diplomatic relations go back 75 years. I'm very proud of the past, and I'm very excited about the future. And there is so much to do between our two countries, especially when it comes to sustainable development. The private sector is playing and will play a crucial role. Swedish innovation, with its focus on sustainability, can actually make a huge difference, even for a huge country like India. When it comes to providing clean technologies, when it comes to providing renewable energy and efficient resource management. This can be done while keeping and boosting economic growth. I will give you a few examples. Water management. In India, the access to clean water with its big population will be a challenge. The Swedish company Altered and the Indian airline company Indigo have recently signed an agreement, which means that all Indigo's aircrafts will be provided by the water-saving nozzle that saves up to 98% of the water consumption on board the aircrafts, thereby saving not only water, but also air fuel. Another example is in waste management. The Swedish company FOV Biogas has teamed up with the Indian dairy cooperative Amul to transform dairy waste into biogas, thereby reducing CO2 emissions, but also providing energy for rural India. Decarbonization and clean energy transition are also high on our joint agenda. I will mention one partnership that has recently been concluded between Soltex and Dalmia Cement. By using advanced Swedish energy storage technology, Dalmia Cement is boosting its efficiency and cutting CO2 emissions. And recently, personally, I witnessed the signing of an investment agreement between the Swedish company Clean Motion and India Accelerator. Clean Motion has developed ZB, a three-wheeler, completely electric, that will soon be manufactured and be running around in Indian streets. There are many other successful examples, of course, but there are also bilateral initiatives between our governments. I will highlight one of them, and that's LEAD IT, the Leadership Group for Industry Transition. LEAD IT 2.0 was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister of India and the Swedish Prime Minister at COP28. LEAD IT is important because it focuses on the hard-to-abate industries such as cement and steel manufacture, the biggest polluters. Through these partnerships, the private and the public ones, we are paving the way towards a sustainable future. The team Samband for Climate Action couldn't be more opportune. But to achieve these goals, we need to work closely together, and we must have all stakeholders on board. Each one of us, individuals, companies, NGOs, everyone must be on board and go in the same direction. Let us strengthen our ties. Let us build a sustainable tomorrow together. Together, India and Sweden. Thank you.
And we will send him the claps, and we will tell him that his video and message did come across. Thank you for that. This year being the 5th year of Engaging India at Almedalen, we are very privileged to have 2 keynote speakers come all the way to India to share their insights, their thoughts, and their vision with us. Firstly, a warm welcome to our keynote speaker 1 for session 1, Mayank Singhal. He is the Vice Chairman and Managing Director of PI Industries. And PI Industries is an Indian agri-sciences company. Mayank has also been recognized as Asia's most promising business leader by the Economic Times and nominated by the government's Department of Science and Technology as a member of the governing board in the Indo-US Science and Technology Forum as well. A very warm welcome, Mayank. The floor is yours.
Thank you. A warm welcome to you. So once again, good afternoon, everybody. Honorable Ambassador to India and Sweden, Shri Tanmay and Latvia, and participants and good friends. Once again, I'm very excited to be here again, back at the 5th edition of Almedalen. Returning this year also is a good time to reflect back on the years gone by and the way forward. The theme for this year, Sambandh, as Rupali mentioned, Sambandh means a connection of relationship, a relationship which is meant both in Swedish and in Hindi. It is indeed interesting, but also connects the idea of oneness, which is close to my heart. The Indian concept of oneness is being fair with nature and the planet, and the earth, as a part of the same continuum. To mitigate climate change, action is needed and catalyze the action, and conversations are necessary. Hence, I'm happy to be back here with Almedalen Week, to participate in conversations between India, Sweden, and climate action. Let us begin with some facts, as we all very well know that this year has been indeed a year of extreme hot weather and recorded in the history of the world. It is an alarming indicator of the acceleration of climate change. This leads back to the Indian concept of oneness. It does not mean that we are not exactly all the same, but we are not diversified enough not to be together. Rather, oneness is about interconnectedness in all forms of which humans are not separate from nature, an integral part of it. Oneness, use of living forms, humans, mammals, birds, mountains, rivers, oceans, forests, and equals. The concept of oneness is interconnectedness is not a modern thought. It is referred in our found of Upanishads and collections of Indian texts written way back between 800 to 200 BC. It is an indicator this idea of interconnectedness or oneness is well understood in the kernels of life on this planet long before our times. However, we lost it somewhere along the countries and perhaps in time in view of climate actions and mitigation through the prism of oneness. It is time, my friends, we look back to our past, our knowledge, learn from it and customize it to the modern world and times for the future generations, which is but necessary. Conversations like these act as a catalyst for change for the better, and we're here to share the learnings and solutions. Sweden is one of the pioneers in climate action, with a target of net zero of greenhouse gases emission by 2045. India, with its massive headroom for sustainable growth, and a developing nation to reach to its people its committed achievement of net zero by 2070. What is very interesting to note that 50% of its electricity will come from renewable sources by 2030. It takes this opportunity to congratulate both India and Sweden for the spearheading the leading group of India transition, Lead IT. Indian transition cannot happen without energy transition. And PI Industries is a company where we are committed to both. I'm happy to note that 2 Indian companies, both SAIL and Thermex, are here from India to become a part of IT today. PI is also in the same ambition for the future. The ambition of PI is reflected and is aligned with the new India's ambition of sustainable long-term growth to create value for all its people and at the same time be sensitive to the planet. At PI, we are already contributing to net zero commitment by continuously looking at choosing and embedded environmental and social responsibilities and deeper into the PI core of our DNA. By fundamental pivoting its R&D-driven products and services with nature as our teacher. Our innovation is focused on learning from nature, mimicking it, and working harmoniously with chemistry, with greener frontiers and biologicals. At PI, we are a sustainable organizational culture which is driven in every business decision. As we say in PI, the way of life to us. Coming back to the concept of oneness, how can India and Sweden collaboration and find together with the lens of oneness? It's a complex question, and addressing it with a singular focus, oneness, will accelerate climate positive actions and solutions, in my view. A sustainable planet is not just one novel technology innovations alone. It's all about reinventing, restoring deep-rooted philosophies of countries like India and Sweden. In India, we speak the concept of advitya, the fundamental oneness of existence, of all existence. The philosophy reminds us that we are not separate from nature and world, but rather an integrated part of it. It is recognition that well-being of one is an inextricable link to the wellness of all. A truth that has never been more urgent than in the face is the climate crisis. We engage in this dialogue and collaborate in Almedalen, and let us commit to a meaningful climate action inspired by the ancient wisdom of oneness. Together, we can and we must for the need of humanity and drive for harmony. With this, I thank you all very much for having me here to participate.
Thank you, Mayank. But before you go, I would like to ask you some questions. Are you ready for the questions?
Yeah, let them come
Okay.
first.
So we do know that climate change impacts agriculture. That is the core also for your business, right? Farmers, and especially farmers and food production at source. Now, since we're talking about Sambandh for climate, how is PI connecting with the farmers to build a more resilient food production system?
Okay, so if I was to say agriculture is not impacted by climate, but also agriculture impacts climate. It's a both way again. To me, it's interconnected. I think today, if you look at the agricultural practices itself, also have an impact on the environment. We look at crops like rice. Which consume huge amount of water, which have a huge climate impact. So I think where we are working as an organization, if I was to sum it up in a very short, quick way, we are looking to say that how we can bring sustainable ways of agricultural practices in 2 ways. One, in the way the agriculture practice is done, where you can use less to get more. I think that's the fundamental philosophy. The other important piece is to say that what is really required and how we can minimize waste. That's the other piece. Third, food production requires to enhance productivity, and also at the same time as we go for sustainable growth in the future, what is very important is to have health. And I think that's an important purpose for the planet. When we look at that, I think we're also looking to say how we can bring a balance between chemistry, biologicals, which are far safer, better with less utilization for better food productivity, for qualitative parameters of food production. And that's how we are engaging, working with the farmers, putting engagement programs. We have more than 1,500 feet on the ground, which focus on these areas, connecting 1,000 to 2,000 farmers a day. And we're trying to change agriculture practices. And one of the great outcomes that we've had, we've saved about 2.7 trillion liters of water by changing agricultural practices, by moving from paddled rice to direct sown rice in India, by introducing new chemicals which can actually reduce herbicidal requirements and also chemicals to improve food productivity of rice.
All right, and a very quick question. I think I have about a minute left.
Sure.
So, PI Industries was included in the S&P Global Sustainability Yearbook of 2022. I hope I'm right on that one.
Right.
Now, we do know that internationally just 25 chemical companies have got this. Now, for the benefit of our listeners in other industry that is present here, could you share how PI Industries has gone through this journey for transformation towards a more climate-friendly, sort of towards climate action?
So, first principle I would say to everybody, it's not about a journey. It's first a mindset. I think that's the most important piece in life. If you're committed to something and you're convinced in your mind that it can be done, that's where you start. I think it's about building that organization culture to say that that's where we want to go. And do we all align to it first? And if you align to it, then what does happen is you start thinking everything from that lens. So that's the most important piece. Once that is all aligned and the people are aligned with that thinking, then you collect, and there's a magnetic effect. But then you actually collect people and resources and sources which come to you to help you achieve that objective for which you may not have solutions. Then comes the next piece. As you asked, how do you go about it? Then it's pretty simple. Then you get the best of people to say how we put the right processes, which can be look at driving governance, monitoring, and delivery, and then create motivation for value creation.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
very, very interesting hearing you. Thank you, Mayank, for your time. So with that, we are wrapping up session 1. And in exactly 1 minute, we will be starting the second session. We already have our keynote speaker who's come from India for the second session. So as we mic her up and call her on stage in about 30 seconds, please bear with us till then. Oh, you are ready. Okay, all done. Okay, so then I'm afraid we were going to start now. Are we ready here on the screen as well? Perfect. Okay. So a very, very warm welcome to you, Meher Putumji, the chairperson of Thermax. Meher has been the driving force behind the company's commitment to sustainable energy and environmental solutions. Her leadership has steered Thermax towards innovative practices that reduce carbon footprint and promote cleaner technologies across various industries. Meher Putumji is also a recipient of the Young Global Leader Award 2006 by the World Economic Forum and the CEO of the Year by Business Standard. She's on the board of several philanthropies and NGOs such as Teach for India and chairs the board of Akanksha Foundation. Both are NGOs which are involved in education for the economically underserved. She's also on the board of Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation. And she works to support India's developmental and energy security objectives. We are so honored that you are here, Meher. Please welcome.
Thank you very much, Rupali.
Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, thank you. Ambassador Tanmay Lal, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. I want to thank my friend Swami for inviting me to this wonderful gathering here at Almedalen. It's great. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Uwe, who really very beautifully showed us this beautiful medieval town of Visby. It's really, I loved the perspectives that you brought yesterday, so thank you very much. To begin with, I do want to tell you that I come from a place called Pune. Pune is about 100 miles from Mumbai, and it is home to a few Swedish companies that started way back in the 60s. And they have their Indian headquarters based out of Pune. So Pune is, or Sweden, is not unknown to many businesses in India. As many of the speakers have said, Sambandh means connections or relationship, both in Hindi as well as in Swedish. So there's a lot of connection, seems to be a lot of connection between the two countries. As we all know, we're talking today about Sambandh for climate. And we all know that, that climate is the most pressing issue that is on our hands today. It knows no borders. It impacts every living being on our planet. It's threatening ecosystems, biodiversity, food security, and the livelihoods of millions of people world over. Many of us may have heard about something called the boiled frog syndrome. So the boiled frog syndrome is when you put a frog in boiling water, it will jump out immediately. But if you put a frog in water and then slowly heat the water, the frog won't know that it's boiling and it's too late. Similarly with climate change. Unfortunately, the prioritization of profit over everything else, as well as certain government policies that haven't been thought through, has fueled unsustainable consumption and climate change. We must recognize the signs and act collectively before it is too late. Both Sweden and India are exemplifying proactive efforts in this regard. Each have their unique strengths and their challenges, whether it is progressive environmental policies, investing in renewable energy like wind and solar, or starting to think about decarbonization of hard-to-abate industries. Sweden's commitment to sustainability serves as a beacon for everyone across the world. They aim to reduce their environmental footprint, include companies like Radscan, Navion, Vattenfall, Ericsson, Scania, of course the famous IKEA that we all know of, that integrates sustainability into its operations, sourcing renewable energy for promoting sustainable practices throughout their supply chain. There are also companies like Renova, Helsingborg, Gothenburg Energy, and many more that lead in district heating and cooling and are now transitioning towards biofuels to cut greenhouse gases. On the other hand, India is, as you all know, is the world's most populous country. It's developing very rapidly, but we face a triple challenge. One is the challenge of economic growth, with millions of people trying to come out of poverty, and so the needs of all these people over time. The second is environmental concerns, and the third is energy security. It's not an easy problem for any developing country to contend with, especially India, that imports 80% of its energy with oil imports, and yet, ironically, is sitting on the world's second largest coal reserves. However, it has made significant strides in expanding renewable energy, promoting energy efficiency measures, launching measures like the International Solar Mission, the Hydrogen Mission, and many others. By the way, today, in fact, most hydrogen produced today is produced, as most of us know, by fossil fuels. Gas in the Western world, coal gasification in China. But of course, it will change, hopefully, with the cost of electrolyzers coming down rapidly. We also need to think of a fair or a just transition. Since today, millions of people derive their income in India from coal, both directly in the coal sector and indirectly through the railways. Railways get majority of their income in India by transporting coal from one place to another. So there are millions of people that get their livelihoods through coal. We will need to think of innovative ways to engage with, to retrain them, to upskill them, to see how we can get their livelihoods to be continued over time. India will reach its non-fossil energy capacity of 500 gigawatts by 2030. As Mayank said, 50% of our electricity requirement will come from renewables by 2030. We also plan to produce 5 million metric tons of hydrogen by then. The government has presently mandated 1% of bio-CNG, which is the compressed biogas, with natural gas for mobility as well as for our own city gas. But that will go up to 5% by the year 29-30, and much more. So there is a lot of momentum that is gathering towards the green transition. Maybe this is a good time for me to introduce our own company, which is Thermax. Our motto from the 70s has been conserving energy, preserving the environment. We recently changed it to conserving resources, preserving the future. Because it's not just energy that we need to conserve, it's a lot of other resources, including water. When we began in the 60s, we started as a boiler company. In fact, our first collaboration was with a Belgian company called Wonson. When the collaboration ended in 1980, we changed the name from Wonson India to Thermax. Over the years, we've moved from boilers to water and wastewater treatment, to air pollution control, chemicals. We do a lot of waste to energy, and we also do power plants. Today, we are a trusted partner to industries, helping them with their customized energy transition needs, producing clean energy, clean water, and clean air. And I'd like to give you 3 examples in the context of our tagline, which is conserving resources, preserving the future. We're a very application-oriented company. So the first example I'll give you, and Mayank talked a little bit about it with regard to rice. In North India, farmers grow rice as a kharif or a monsoon crop. They sow seeds in June and they harvest in October. Post-harvesting, they burn the rice straw, which is called stubble burning, since they only have a few weeks before they can plant the next crop, which is the rabi or the winter crop. Due to this burning, pollution levels are crazy in the north of India for a few months, giving rise to a lot of diseases, especially lung diseases. And strangely, on the other hand, this rice straw has a fantastic opportunity where it can be converted into bio-CNG or compressed biogas. And this is a green fuel that, as I mentioned earlier, can be used both for mobility as well as for city gas. And that's how we also reduce our dependence on imports. The byproduct that is generated is also an organic fertilizer, so you need less and less chemical fertilizer in the soil. However, converting this rice straw into bio-CNG is not easy. There are a number of technology challenges. Thermax is currently working on this at the moment, and if there's any company that has some knowledge of this, we'd love to partner with you to see how to crack this. Because once we crack this, it would be really great. It would be really great for humanity as well as for India. We're also presently converting cow dung, press mud, as well as municipal solid waste into bio-CNG. Another very innovative application that we've come out with is the potato chip frying industry. So this industry is a guzzler for water. We've worked with a large MNC in India that uses 7 liters of water for every 1 kilogram of potato chips fried. And we've done a water audit with them and found that we can reduce 85% of the water usage. So now they use 1 liter of water for every kilogram of potato chips fried. We've also found that when you fry potato chips, there's something called volatile organic compounds that comes out, that are generated. And these volatile organic compounds contain energy. So we actually take the energy from there and convert it into cooling. And there is cooling that is needed in the potato chip industry because for packaging, you need a cooling environment in order to keep the potato chips crisp. And so in some ways, it's like a circularity. Yeah, so it's working in completely end-to-end. Another interesting application, many European countries utilize waste for district heating and, of course, now even for district cooling. Thermax has worked with many utility packagers in Scandinavia and in many other European countries. In fact, it's in Uppsala, in Sweden, your low and medium grade heat, which is generated from waste, household and industrial waste, powers 2 of Thermax's heat pumps. The same units produce hot water for district heating in winter and chilled water for cooling in summer. And we've supplied about 10 or 12 of them in Sweden, as well as a number of chillers for Sweden. We're also turning waste into wealth using RDF, which is refuse-derived fuel. And this is burnt in our boilers, supplying multiple units, again through Swedish and various Scandinavian contractors to Norway and other Scandinavian countries through our company, Dan Stoker, in Denmark. So it really feels good to see that we are partnering with customers, helping them reduce carbon emissions, helping them convert waste into some form of value, as well as reducing the quantum of water. And I'm sure that there are many, many collaborations or partnerships possible between India and Sweden in the areas of technology, research, and bilateral trade for clean energy, clean air, and clean water. Just another thought that I had for Sambandh, for climate, between Sweden and India could be education and skilling for green jobs. The skills that we're going to need are going to be very, very different to what skills are needed today. Whether it's hydrogen, whether it's carbon capture, whether it's solar, wind, architects and environmental consultants will need new skills when creating low-energy buildings. It's not just about plumbing and masonry, but tomorrow project managers are going to be able to have to learn to get drones working in order to see projects completed. Electricians will have to be taught on how to maintain and install solar panels, solar water pumps in villages. Petrol pump attendants will have to know how to fill in or get electricity charged into an EV. Scandinavian school education, especially I'm told Finland, but I'm sure in Sweden too, is known to be one of the best in the world. India, on the other hand, has a huge challenge with regard to school education and needs fixing. Talking about scale, we have 250 million children at school at any point in time. How do we make them future ready? When they pass out from school or college 10, 15, 20 years from now, the world is going to be a very, very different place to what it is today. How do we really equip them to be continuous learners, to give them 21st century skills, rather than making them rote learners just to pass exams? Is there an opportunity for Sweden and India to work together to build some of these skills, to build agency in our children so that they can face the changing world of tomorrow? Something for us to really think about. When I started, I spoke about the motive of profit over all else, which has led to unsustainable consumption. However, over time, it's good to see that there are many, many companies that are incorporating profit, purpose, and planet into their long-term strategies. And I'd like to end with something that my father really believed and constantly worked towards, which is that profit is not a set of figures, but of values. Thank you.
So beautifully put, Meher. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for that. And I'm going to pick up on the, on the last bit that you talked about, balancing planet, people, and profit. How do you go about it at Thermax, for example?
I think I'll pick on what Mayank said, actually. It starts with the mindset. It's actually all about the mindset. And it's about the mindset at the top of the organization to begin with. Yeah, so whether it's the ownership, whether it's the board, the second executive line, how do we all really think about planet, purpose, and profit together? And I think, and that's how it started in Thermax. And as I mentioned, conserving energy, preserving the environment has been our motto since the 70s. And so in some ways, planet and purpose went hand in hand, even at that time. And just to let you know that neither my father nor my grandfather, who started the company, were engineers. But they started a company that was purely engineering. And they managed to do this because they really got very good people whom they empowered. They gave a lot of freedom to. People were allowed or encouraged to make mistakes. And so I think the whole idea of innovation, application engineering, thinking out of the box started there. So that's how the people element, the planet, and the purpose sort of mix together. And I'd also say, I think when the going is good, it's fine. But I think it's some of those important decisions that sort of come to a level where you have to step back and say, do I want my purpose and planet, or do I want profit? And I'll give you one example. About 15 years ago, we decided to start a business called a build, own, operate business, where we were selling steam rather than selling a boiler. Yeah? And it came to the board that let's start this. And I remember us thinking about it and saying, if we start it as a business which can use any fuel, and then you sell the steam, the business can be huge, and we can make a massive profit. But I remember having this dialogue and saying, but don't we want to really think about the planet and about environment? And this is the time that we have to really take a decision whether our purpose is important or not. And we took a decision at that time that we will stick only to green. And that was 15 years ago. We may have lost a lot of business, but today I think it's proved to be the right decision.
It's a hard decision, no doubt, Meher, because balancing, I think, for any corporate or any industry, profitability, the sort of the bottom line with people, with the future of the company as well. So very interesting story, and I'm glad you shared this. If I can ask you a very, very quick question, one more.
Sure.
Yeah. You spoke about climate action and about building up a green economy, and you gave some examples. What role does green engineering play in enabling this transition for building a next generation economy, for example? So sort of a next generation of industry, of business opportunities, and of a next generation of young minds who are then innovating.
I mean, there's a lot happening at universities in terms of green engineering. Today, for example, someone who Mayank and I know in Pune, Mr. Pradeep Bhargava, is leading a phenomenal initiative called Green Co, which is certifying green companies or companies that are greening their factories. So there are different certifications, like the bronze, silver, gold, platinum certifications that you get when your factory becomes cleaner and greener. To do that, you have to have green engineering skills. So that's coming into the market now. There is waste to energy, a lot of thinking on waste to energy. Architects, builders are thinking about how to use materials that are greener, that are cleaner, where there is some sort of circularity, where we're not throwing away things, where we're reusing and recycling. So I think green engineering is really something that is developing hugely all over the world at the moment.
Thank you so much, Meher. And
Thank you.
some of the points that you raised, in fact, we do have people from academia as well as industry who will later in the day be sharing more on green engineering, including building material, including on food. So we do have some of these examples right here, which we would love to share with our audience
Thank
as
you.
well. But lovely having you here. Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Rupali.
Meher.
Thank
Patanji.
you. Thank you.
And we will be transitioning now to our panel discussion. We find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the urgency of climate change demands that there are robust solutions and scalable solutions across industries. The science is clear. Human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels and deforestation, is driving a climate challenge. We are witnessing the consequences every single day. In response, industries worldwide are also recognizing the need to innovate and adapt. We heard Mayank, we heard Meher also speak about it, and we also heard the Honorable Ambassador talk about it. Now, our conversation today with our next set of guests will delve into how different sectors are scaling up their efforts for sustainable transformation, the role of technological advancement, policy framework, and education, of course, in facilitating this transition. So with that, may I please have on stage Felipe Sanchez. Felipe heads partnerships at the Leadership Group for Industry Transition, Lead It, where he leads efforts to support in the industry partnerships between governments of India and Sweden, as well as, I believe, Brazil and UK. We also have with us Viral Thakkar, partner and leader of sustainability and climate at Deloitte South Asia. He supports clients across industries in the public and private sectors to design and drive their ESG strategy and transformation. Also joining us today is Shilpa Sachdeva. She oversees legal, risk and compliance at PI Industries, ensuring that the company's adherence to regulatory and ethical standards, especially now on sustainable practices as well. And from academia, we have with us Raine Isaksson. He's a docent and associate professor at Uppsala University and Luleå University with a focus on quality management for sustainable development. His research also includes areas of sustainable cement and concrete production and alternative binders. Also, a warm welcome to Carl-Johan Linnér. He's CEO of Saltex Technology and a Swedish company that focuses on decarbonizing the heavy emission industry with their innovative technology. And we also welcomed a very special guest from India to join us at the last moment. So thank you for being such a sport. Welcome Feroz Padamji. He is on the board of Thermax and facilitates the company's international initiatives, including incubation and development of new businesses and also making relevant organizational changes. So welcome to our entire panel. We have people who are mic'd here and we have our hand mics here. So I will pass it on to you perhaps and we can share the mics there. Great. All right, so let's begin with you, Felipe. A successful transition for hard-to-abate industry requires an enabling infrastructure. It also requires low-carbon value chains, which is matched then with relevant policy. Leadership Group for Industry Transition, or Lead It, is a very, very interesting initiative that has been started. Could you tell us a little more about that and how you are managing this facilitation?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rupali. Hope you can hear me okay. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you so much to Ambassador Lal and Ambassador Tessel for mentioning us in your interventions at the beginning. I can maybe start by giving a little bit of background to Lead It for those of you that don't know. So it's a public-private partnership focusing on reaching net zero emissions. And at the time when it was launched in 2019 by the governments of Sweden and India, its mission was to build momentum. And if we think back to 2019 and the years that have happened since, we realize that the world, in terms of the global industry decarbonization landscape, has completely changed. We've seen the Inflation Reduction Act in the USA. We've seen the EU with its Green Deal industry plan, CBAMs popping up. But we've also seen there's a 7-fold increase in the number of green steel projects that Lead It tracked in its Green Steel Tracker, as well as a number of CCUS projects in cement, and some healthy competition from startups challenging the notion that CCUS in the cement industry is the only game of town, some of which are in this room with us today. So in some senses, the mission of Lead It originally has been superseded. So we've kind of started to shift our focus. We moved from thinking about building momentum to building partnerships, or more fostering or facilitating partnerships. And what do I mean by that very sort of jargony, buzzwordy language? Well, let me give you 3 examples. So firstly, Lead It helps to shine a spotlight on the champions and challenges to industry transition. So by champions, I'm referring to the front-runner companies that are developing innovative decarbonization solutions. And by challenges, I mean the areas or issues where it still feels like it's 2019. So things that, for instance, in developed countries, things like permitting or leveling the playing field. And in emerging markets, things like the cost of capital or access to technology and know-how. The second point is that we help connect our company members that are interested in scaling up their technologies. And we do this by connecting them to actors within our network that might help to find new business opportunities, new funding opportunities. And if there is appetite, connecting our members that are interested in co-developing technologies together and technology transfer. And the third point I would say, which you've kind of hinted at and others have hinted at as well, is this matching of ambitious emerging economies, emerging markets with front-runner countries. So one example of that is, of course, the India-Sweden Industry Transition Partnership. The other is the Brazil-UK partnership. And just to sum all that up, I think the only way that we're going to move the needle on the things that we need to move it on, so policy, finance, technology, infrastructure, some of the things you mentioned, Rupali, is through building and fostering these partnerships that are very much needed. And that is exactly the focus of Lead It today and where Lead It helps.
Well, very interesting, and I think we will be hearing more on Lead It in the course of this seminar. I will jump to Carl right now. Carl-Johan, alternative energy sources and store is crucial for industry transition. Saltex, we know, is innovating for energy storage solutions. Tell us a little bit about that. How does the technology work? The bit that you can share in public, at least.
Thank you very much for inviting us to this event, Mr. Ambassador, and all ladies and gentlemen in here. You're very quite right that we started a company as an energy storage, a thermal chemical energy storage company. But we found out very soon, not very soon, but after a while, we found out that the market was not really ready for this thermochemical storage application. So we developed our own electrified reactor, and that turned out so well. So we actually put in a patent application, and we got an innovation patent approved now, that is purely electrifying the production of quicklime and cement production. And this is unique. There are many solutions, and all solutions are needed to fight back the emission of CO2 today. But our solution is really that you start from the beginning again. You scrap all the existing ones and you start from a white greenfield operation that you electrify the process itself. So no carbon capture. Carbon capture is also needed, but they are continuing using coal and oil and various things, and then capturing the whole thing. But we don't do that. Our innovation is really that we separate the calcium carbonate and break out the CO2 at 950,000 degrees in an innovation chamber using a plasma heat that is really using the radiation of heat to make the chemical process in a controlled way. So we have built an electric calciner research center in the middle of Sweden that was actually inaugurated in November, where LEADIT were there, and we actually opened it up together. And since that, we have been running this test facility on more or less on a weekly basis. We have good results, but we need to do more tests about it. So it's not that easy. I usually say that if it would have been easy, someone else would have been done it. So, but that's we are working on it.
Well, that's a nice way to put it. I will now jump across to Thermax, which has been solving for environmental and energy solutions. So with multiple energy options available, how does a company like Thermax look at a green transition from a business growth point of view?
Thanks, Rupali. Pleasure to be here with Ambassador Lal. Thank you. And all the other dignitaries. So the way Thermax has operated and worked is, if I can just draw a box and there's an industry in there. So Thermax provides what it needs to run its business. Yeah. So we provide heating, cooling, clean water, and then it chucks out a lot of garbage on the other side. So we clean that up. So that's wastewater, that's effluent, that's pollution, gaseous and particulate. And we, again, try to reuse that and put it back into the system. So if you look at the way Thermax has evolved over time, it's always through adjacencies. We first knew boilers. When we said boilers need clean water, so we got into water treatment. Water treatment needs chemicals, we got into those chemicals. Boilers pollute, we got into air pollution control. So in that way, we kept on building on our existing portfolio. Now, coming to green transition, Mayor has mentioned a lot of it in her talk. We use a lot of biomass now, and this is waste biomass and not anything that will take away from food security. We look at ways in which to use different areas of waste back into the process, into the system. So if there's the slightest amount of waste water, if there's the slightest amount of waste energy, steam, we'll put it back into the system. And that's how we create a kind of circular economy within the ecosystem of a factory. Coming to newer technologies, these are going to be more and more difficult, more complex. We've had an occasion to deal with fuel cells with the Department of Defense in India. That was mainly for air-independent propulsion of submarines. But from that, there's so much offtake that we have received. And the government has been kind enough to say, hey, if you want to develop something from this, please go ahead and do it for our domestic consumption and for export if required. So we're working on that. We're looking at electrolyzers, for green hydrogen. Now, this is another area where I think we will need some help. It's very, very difficult to get technology in this area. So what we are extremely good at is what we call as engineering, procure, and construct. We do a good job of that. So we've got partners who are willing to give us the core technology in terms of a black box, but then we put everything else together. That's the balance of plant around it. Having said that, we are also working internally on our own technologies, and I think it's important for India to have its own technology security moving in that direction. So I think when you put all this together, as I said, it's all to do with basically our adjacencies, learning from what we've done in the past, continuing to build on that, and building newer technologies in the green space from there. So I'd leave it at that. Thank you.
Very interesting. Thanks, Feroz. I'm going to now come back to you, Viral. Now, as a Deloitte South Asia leader for World Climate and someone who really works closely with boards and with the CXOs on helping them with their ESG strategies, how do you think the uptake and interest has changed over the last few years as far as the transition goes among the heavy industries or the hard-to-abate industries?
Thanks, Rupali, and thanks for that question. Great to be here, by the way. So the transition that the country is going through is twofold. Early on, there was almost a compliance focus. There was because there were regulations that were coming in, both for companies that operate domestically and those that export. But more recently, there has been a greater appreciation for the fact that a transition away from, so transition to decarbonize is something that is increasingly cost efficient, right? So there is actually a, if you take a look at, say, an oil refinery, which has 1/3 of its emissions coming from captive hydrogen production, etc. Moving to renewable sources actually is IRR positive, right? So it's actually good business sense for you to consider as well. And I think Meher mentioned this earlier, India imports 80% of its energy needs. So the decarbonization actually helps in moving away from the vagaries of import and the price differentials, etc. The third thing is, as storage becomes more efficient and cheaper, it actually then makes for strong base load power, etc. that can also come in. And the most important thing to consider also is that there are legitimate business opportunities that companies are seeing, right? So when you look at, obviously both Meher and Mayank spoke about, the various areas that they themselves are highly prevalent in. And Feroz talked about electrolyzers, so green hydrogen. While India has a target of 5 million tons by 2030, we are already seeing some producers that are likely to become lowest cost producers already, right? Which means that you'll have a significant domestic consumption and an export market that is going to be available. So even if you take that as an example, there's a significant move, to go towards that area, and for that to become a substantial business opportunity. So while obviously purpose and planet are there, but even if you look at a hard economic view, it is proving to be the right thing to do from a business perspective.
And that's a very interesting view, I would say, because often it is the cost of the transition which is spoken about, and that is seen as, I won't call it a deterrent, but perhaps some sort of a road bump into a hurdle. But that's interesting because then it encourages more innovation, perhaps more innovation in academia. And coming to you, Raine, as someone who's worked in both industry and academia, how do you see the role of academic research translate into innovation for industry? You worked very, very closely in the cement space and innovating for that, looking at different alternative binders, etc. So have you seen any example, or are there examples in which the innovation in academic institutions have translated into actual businesses? And your mic's here. Yes.
So thanks, Rupali. I was thinking, how do I do this? Because I didn't get any kind of indication or a question before. So I think I have to do a politician answer for this one.
It needs to be a surprise. So don't come very well.
So I think this, with my 20 years in academia and 20 years in industry, allows me to zoom out a little bit And I think from the previous speakers, Uwe and we got from the PI industries, is both this with having the kind of a knowledge and then having the mindset to do something. Now all this goes back to that we need to have a common understanding. Now when we speak about sustainability and sustainable development, we don't seem to have that in actually no field. We have a lot of activities, but when we go back to building, and if we speak about alternative binders, and even this kind of a session here is about kind of a carbon neutrality. But thereby we're missing one thing. What's the value that we're getting for this carbon? So I personally don't like the triple bottom line at all. I think eco-efficiency, when we look at value per harm, is a much better way of going forwards. So when we look at buildings, we have to say, okay, yes, we have a big problem that buildings consume. The building value chain consumes something like 40% or is responsible for 40% of the world carbon emissions. And how do we reduce it? Then it's up to every company to somehow to see that which value are we producing. So what is the end product we want to see? Well, alternative buildings are at least affordable and carbon neutral. And then we get suddenly 2 indicators, not 100, but we get 2. And when we have students and I ask, so okay, so what's a sustainable Sweden, or what's a sustainable university, or what's a sustainable person? Nobody ever can understand, answer it properly. But I think if you start with what are my main footprints and what's the main value that I'm producing. So I'm not answering your question if I see an example. So the short answer is I haven't seen very much. I looked a lot at the literature at alternative binders. There's something for 20 years. Very little of it has come out to real practice. It stays in the university, and I think some of you are familiar with the Parkinson's law that you cite each other, and not much comes out of it. So I think somewhere in whatever field that we are, in our individual level or in building, or if you are a cement plant, you'd have to say, what is sustainable cement? Because if you only look at the footprint, it's very good with technological solutions, but in the end, how much value is the cement producing? How much can I build with it? Maybe I build 10 times as much, and then I need much less, and the CCS or whatever solution becomes much smaller. But that kind of understanding is not visible in the sustainability reports of today from cement industries or building industries. So I think academia needs to work with the understanding, and then we can communicate and let our students and our partners work with
That's a good message, Raine. So, I mean, there is a need for a lot more collaboration and perhaps a lot more conversations like these to increase that collaboration. Coming to you, Shilpa, and as somebody who's been part of PI's sustainability journey, and you spearhead legal, risk and compliance, how do you see the risk management and risk mitigation as part of climate action?
Thanks, Rupali. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Honorable Ambassador and all. See, risk mitigation comes across as a complex exercise, but it is something which, if done properly, brings up to the table what the company's motive and the objective is. We spoke about mindset. We also spoke about last year, less is more. Now, when a company is adapting their, which is rather a strategic necessity and no more a moral imperative to have your corporate governance, integrate your sustainability practices into your company's policies, protocols, risk management comes into the right place to ensure that while you are picking up the projects, new business objectives, are you doing the entire feasibility which will actually support your sustainable practices? What are the risks over there? Are you doing your analysis on the risk? Are you doing the stress analysis to identify if it's going to get you the desired objective, desired motive, desired results? Because eventually, by the end of it, we're all looking at the sustainable results. Let it be innovation, let it be governance, let it be getting into the new energies. But if you've done a mitigation, have a framework, assessed with the standards, I think we are good to go. So risk mitigation plays a very important role.
Thanks, Shilpa. And if I know I have like 3 minutes on time, and I have a very, very strict timekeeper, and we have the State Secretary here as well, so welcome. But if we are considering the current trends and challenges, now how do we envision the future for industry transition towards sustainability in the next decade? If I can have everyone give maybe one-line answer and then we can wind up. Perhaps we can start from that side, Felipe.
Yeah, maybe I can just very quickly re-emphasize my point. To see the green solutions that we need to see in the next decade, we first have to start with, okay, who are the people that need to get in the room to come to an agreement that that's going to happen? And without that first step, you're never going to reach that.
Get everyone in the same room. Viral.
Yeah. Very similar. We are tracking 5,000 distinct innovations for climate change, and half of what we need to get to net zero is still in conceptual or prototyping stage, which means that the collaboration between industry, academia, startups, and the financing community needs to get even stronger.
Good that you brought about financing community as well.
Get the wisdom, get the mindsetting into the boardroom and set that they really want to do this now, because we need to do this change, and that's directly. And so many things you want to say here now, but we are working together with Dalmia, 40,000 tons cement produced every year. They have the plan to go up to 80,000 tons. And if we just can take a fraction out of that and produce it by electrified solution, it will be a fantastic possibility to bring that concept into their business concept, allowing them to take market shares, break the monopoly situation as we do have in the cement situation also. We need to be brave. We need to get.
All right, and the takeaway, that's my takeaway. Raine, can you do it in 5 words?
Decide what is climate sustainability for you and what is sustainable development. Define that and start from there.
I think it's all about knitting companies' objective, knitting your regulator needs, and know what you want to do actually.
So bringing in a more proactive regulatory framework.
Precisely.
All right.
Yes.
Firoz, the last word.
Yeah. So it's academia, finance for sure, talking to everybody out there, yeah, and keeping an open mind. Most importantly, allowing our own people to experiment and fail. I think that's
experiment and fail. Yeah. Learning by doing. Experiment, fail. Make it happen. Well, thank you so much, panelists, for very, very interesting insights from different perspectives. Thank you, and please take your seats. And staying with industry transition, at the UN Climate Action Summit 2019, India and Sweden launched the first global high-level initiative aimed at reaching net zero emissions from heavy industry. That's the Leadership Group for Industry Transition, or LEADIT. It is a pleasure today to invite Ambassador Tanmay Lal back on stage, along with State Secretary Daniel Westland, State Secretary to the Minister of Climate and the Environment at the Ministry of Climate and Enterprise, to share the efforts of the Leadership Group for Industry Transition, including some news to share which they are going to be announcing very soon. May I welcome you, Ambassador. Welcome, State Secretary.
Nice to meet you.
Ambassador, can you get started?
State Secretary Westland, CEOs from SEMVision and Steel Authority of India Limited, colleagues from LEADIT Secretariat at Stockholm Environment Institute, friends. It's great to join another important session of Engaging India at Almedalen. And this session is made even more special as we have 2 new members, one each from India and Sweden, joining the LEADIT, the India-Swedish Joint Climate Action Global Initiative at this platform. Our special thanks to State Secretary Westland for joining us today. And we are happy to partner the Swedish Ministry of Climate and Enterprise, NACI, at this session on scaling climate action. LEADIT is a good example of real international collaboration for a collective low-carbon future. Only a few months back, Prime Ministers Modi and Ulf Kristersson jointly launched the LEADIT 2.0 during COP28 at Dubai for the next 3 years. This was a recognition at the highest level of the useful work and contribution that LEADIT has made since its inception around 5 years ago at the United Nations Climate Summit. New members, both companies and countries, continue to join this initiative. Decarbonization of steel and cement production, which are essential ingredients of infrastructure today, but with very high carbon emissions, is a key focus of LEADIT. Therefore, it is especially exciting to have two more important engineering companies, one each from steel and cement sectors, join the LEADIT coalition today. Steel Authority of India Limited is an Indian public sector undertaking that traces its origin 70 years ago. And today, SAIL is one of the largest steel producers in India. And we are happy that we have the chairman, SAIL, here today. SAIL is also focused on reducing its GHG emissions significantly by 2030. SemVision, a 5 years young Swedish tech company, is focused on drastically reducing the carbon emissions in the cement making process by replacing limestone with the industrial byproducts, including from the steel making process. So again, a very exciting prospect. Our compliments to SAIL and SemVision for their decision to join LEADIT family and for their commitment to help global industrial decarbonization efforts. India-Sweden cooperation on environment and climate is unique and has a long history. And it goes back more than 5 decades to the 1972 Stockholm Conference, which was the first ever UN conference on human environment. On a more personal note, may I mention that my first professional experience as a chemical engineer was at a 1 million ton cement plant that was being operationalized in India more than 35 years ago in 1987. And that was the year, in fact, when the Montreal Protocol on countering ozone depletion was finalized, and which has since proved very, very successful. But this was before the first IPCC report on climate change was even published and the commencement of the UNFCCC negotiations. And 25 years later, I had the opportunity of serving as one of India's climate negotiators in these negotiations. These continue to be a work in progress. And therefore, in this context, working now with Swedish friends and partners and LEADIT is very special due to the focus on collaborative climate action through concrete engineering solutions and leveraging investment to help transition towards a global net zero. I may add that the scale and speed of the ongoing transformation in India is not only essential for India, but is also critical for the global success on climate action. And at the same time, this transformation in the world's fastest growing large economy provides huge business opportunities and avenues for global economic growth. Today, clean technologies and sustainability solutions are a key and growing aspect of India-Sweden business, technology, innovation, and talent linkages. Before concluding, may I say that engaging India at Almedalen platform has grown in its scope and content over the last few years, and this is its 5th edition. And I have engaged with the 3 previous editions. Our compliments to the team at Content People, led by Ms. Rupali Mehra and Mr. Swaminathan for these efforts. And we wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Lal, for the invitation to come to this event today, and especially this exciting session. On a beautiful day like this, it's easy to forget the dark clouds building up on the horizon. Climate change is an existential threat to humanity, and we must tackle this challenge urgently, prepare for actions that we need to take. The green transition is necessary, but it also holds great opportunity, and I guess that's partly what LEADIT is about, to see this opportunity and to take it. We met on numerous occasions over the years to discuss transition of the heavy industries. The Swedish government is proud to co-chair the Leadership Group for Industry Transition, or LEADIT, together with India. Since the launch in 2019, we have worked together to continuously develop the initiative. We are working to keep LEADIT relevant for our countries and members, governments and companies alike. This was manifested not least at COP28, when the Honourable Prime Ministers Narendra Modi and Ulf Kristersson launched LEADIT 2.0. and the new industry transition platform. Sweden and India have joined forces to share experiences and knowledge, to cooperate on innovation and technology development, and to develop the concrete projects of mutual benefits to speed up the green transition in the steel and cement sectors. LEADIT members demonstrate that a zero-emission future is possible. New technologies are developed and implemented, and they must also be industrialized and spread. The industry is in the driving seat of the green transition. The role of the government is to enable their work. The central competencies are fossil-free energy, efficient permitting processes, skilled people, and the infrastructure needed. If I drop my cards for a bit, do you remember when we still called it the hard-to-abate sectors? Or even we thought it was impossible to abate sectors? That's not the case anymore. Now we see progress happening, not the least among the LEADIT member companies. So I'm very glad to see that the progress is here that we 5 years ago talked of as hard to abate sectors, which we don't really need to talk about anymore. Back to the manuscript. 2 weeks ago, the government of Sweden decided on the next step to accelerate the green transition in Sweden. We have now two national coordinators for the industry transition here. They were appointed in something called an acceleration office. The task they were allotted is to suggest solutions to overcome obstacles, to handle conflicting goals, and to increase investments, to increase the Swedish competitiveness. Basically, this is about getting people to talk to each other, and these two people will be our coordinators to make sure that they will lubricate the processes and make sure that people talk to each other to get this to happen in Sweden. Sweden is very honored and pleased with the close collaboration with India in the green transition. Action to achieve global industry transition needs both established heavy industry and technology innovators to learn from each other and to achieve sustainable growth and prosperity. The LEADIT Group is therefore delighted to welcome the two new members, both committed to achieving decarbonization and tackling different challenges, but representing new opportunities. Semvision, having developed groundbreaking technology to reduce emissions from cement production by 80 to 100%, and SAIL, one of the largest steel producers in India, and a company taking on an active role in the India-Sweden industry transition platform. I'm pleased to see the presence of Oscar. Are you here? Ah, there you are. Mr. Tiwari. Hello, nice to meet you. You're the director in charge at Bukhari Steel Plant. I should say Oscar is the CEO of Semvision. Manoy Kumar, are you here as well? Nice to meet you. You're the chief general manager of at Durgapur Steel Plant. I'm very glad you're here. A world with net zero emissions from heavy industry by 2050 needs all stakeholders to commit to a fair and just transition that includes all regions of the globe. The India-Sweden Leadership Group on Industrial Decarbonization is strengthened by the new members, and I warmly welcome you to the LEADIT family. I look forward to work with you on our journey to a zero-carbon future. I'm convinced that we will have reason to meet again to celebrate more milestones in the years to come. Most welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ambassador, and thank you, State Secretary. With that, please stay on stage, because may I invite the chairperson as well of the Steel Authority of India, who's with us, Mr. Amarendu Prakash, and the CEO of Semvision, who is with here, Oscar Holland, as well as other members of the Steel Authority of India. Please do come on stage. We will take a group photo. We will have another one of all the speakers together as well.
We can get the ambassadors in in the center. Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Welcome to LEADIT.
Yeah, from middle.
Should I take this off?
Take it from top. Thank you. Thank you, and please stay on stage. May we also invite all the other speakers on stage, please, for a group photo, and then we begin. We will take a fika break. I promise there is coffee and cake. Oh, but before that, we have a question and answer session. Sorry, 15 more minutes, yeah. Swami? Maybe some of us can. Oh, we can stand, I think. We should be okay, Mayor. Yeah. Okay, please. Yeah. Swami. Yeah. Come. Yeah. Raine? Thank you, everyone. Please take your seats back. May I request Felipe, Oscar, and Amarendu on stage to remain on stage, please. Yeah, it's fine. All right. Are we ready? Are we ready? Do we have the mics? Okay, so welcome and congratulations to Mr. Amarendra Prakash, Mr. Oscar Harlan, and of course, Lead IT for this announcement. Y'all are growing as we see by year. But let's start with you, Amarendu. You head one of India's largest steel production. Well, it is a public sector company, and you've had a strategic vision focusing on reducing the environmental aspect of steel production through innovative technologies. Now, how did you decide to join the leadership group for industry transition?
I'm not sure. Okay, I'm audible. Thank you so much, all the dignitaries here and all friends from India and Sweden. Why did we decide to join? In the earlier session, as Rupali mentioned, 5 words. He was giving 5 words. I'll give you 6. One world, one family, and there is only one future. So to us, what we feel is climate change is something which does not look at the color of your face. It does not matter you're white, black, brown. It does not have any boundaries. If we see, if the temperatures are rising, they're rising as much in Europe as in India, or in Middle East or Africa. If floods are coming, the floods are not choosing their place. There are no longer places which are known as, this is the place where flood will be there, or this is the place where you will have dry weather. It is something so unpredictable. It is going to affect each and every person, irrespective of what you have done in the past or what you are going to do in the future. So this is the right time when every single human, this is a question that humanity faces rather than a company faces or a country faces. To us, it is no longer a question, so much so that in our company, for example, if you look at the priority list of the company, what are our top 5 priorities? Decarbonization is not one of them. We have declared decarbonization is the survival question. It's a question of survival, not a priority, not a business priority. So that's the reason we come to Lead IT, to collaborate, to discuss with others, and we feel if this is the only way forward.
Well, it also indicates the intent and the urgency of the issue, doesn't it? Coming to you, Oscar. So Oscar Holland, CEO of Semvision, and a company that develops innovative low-carbon cement solutions. what brought you to Lead IT? It's a fairly young company.
It is, I travel around with this. This is our PowerPoint presentation, our sort of fossil-free cement that we showcase that we are more than just a PowerPoint presentation that some very young companies are, but we're sort of past that stage. And what sort of drove us to lead IT is obviously the potential in collaboration is key to actually moving the needle. And I think there's fantastic symbolism in standing here and sharing the stage with you in the fact that our main raw material comes from the steel industry. So, I mean, just on this stage, we have an opportunity to actually collaborate and look how can we take waste material that you don't use, upcycle that into something of high value, and use that to build a more sustainable future. And I think that's those opportunities, that's so evident when you stand here today, and that's what we sort of envisage when we applied to become a member.
All right. Also, to run us through how the technology really works. What is the innovation really?
So there's a number of innovations. So first of all, the fact that we can take raw material that nobody else uses, and we have a technique to treat it. So it's valuable for us. Then secondly, we have a chemistry which allows us to produce cement with a much lower content of calcium oxide. And that in turn allows those two innovations in turn leads us to produce this in an electrified process. And we have produced cement clinker with plasma, with hydrogen, for example, as well. So a number of innovations allows us to produce this, which is a cement that is, from a technical perspective, in many ways better than the Portland cement, the traditional cement that we use today. That was a long answer. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Philippe, coming back to you. Lead IT has been orchestrating a lot of the partnerships, or facilitating a lot of the partnerships. And why are these partnerships at various levels of industry, from sort of your big giants to young companies as well? Why are these partnerships important, and how is Lead IT going about it?
Thanks, Rupali. And first of all, thank you so much on behalf of our Secretariat for taking the decision to join Lead IT. And a big warm welcome from everyone in the group. Of course, I'm delighted to be joined on stage by what we can see as an incumbent steel company, as well as a startup cement company, and that really shows our technology provided to the cement industry, rather. And it shows a real clear message that no one actor can solve this alone. And as long as both incumbents and startups are willing to drive the transition, then we're in this together in a really positive way. And I would just urge companies that have joined Lead IT and others to really demonstrate their commitment to the Paris Agreement, or continue to do so, to engage with Lead IT and its members, and also to be a champion for the transition, which both of you, by being here, are demonstrating already.
Right. Now, how important is sort of the India-Sweden relationship as part of Lead IT? Because it was started in 2019, or envisioned in 2019 with the Lead IT 1.0 by India and Sweden. Now you have new partners as well. There are several countries. So could you take us through that and sort of the importance of building country-wise as well as industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I can say that Sweden and India have been at the heart of Lead IT since the very beginning. They're the very cornerstone of the initiative itself. And I think as we move forward, it's good to have those two countries working together within each of the ministries and agencies that are involved in those countries, breaking down the silos in each of those countries, and therefore being able to provide the enabling conditions that allow the companies that work in those countries and across the world to be able to thrive based on the enabling conditions they put forward.
All right. Coming to you, Amarindu, there are also challenges, right, in decarbonization. While there is so much of good news towards innovation, Raine brought up the point that there needs to be a lot more, right? So what are the challenges that you see within your sector on that road to decarbonization, and how do you see those being solved?
Right, as Raine mentioned, it is all about, first of all, defining what decarbonization means to you and how much, where you can move. So the challenges that we face currently are twofold. If I talk about steel industry in particular, we practically, as a matter, if you look at our cost sheet as to what costs goes into steel making, you will find almost 50% of the cost is energy. So to tell you, while reducing energy is not just a decarbonization goal, reducing energy helps me earn more profit, brings down my cost. So there are items which are in the money. So there are initiatives like efficiency in how we operate. Can we make it more efficient? Can we learn from others who have done it earlier? Can we jointly work on improving the efficiency of the process? So those will be in the money and are a no-brainer. One has to go ahead with that, and one can shake hands on that. The second aspect is which is out of money. That means you need to put in more money in order to make cleaner steel, greener steel. And that is the question where the whole mechanism of financing, the whole mechanism of, to tell you very frankly, Lead It is something that I have been trying to assess, and as we go forward, I'll request every member of Lead It to get in and not think, okay, I have got a new technology, I have got a new innovation, can I protect it and make it as a business advantage so I can do more business than you? This is only one earth, one family, and one future only. So it doesn't matter you earn more profit or I earn more profit. Ultimately, we are going to end up with the same world. So we need to all realize that all these out-of-money questions need to be solved jointly. Everybody has to play their part. And together, I believe we can intermingle, we can talk to each other, we can help read each other's mind in order to bring more solutions on this.
Fantastic. And I think you've ended it on a very good note. So I will perhaps end this session there as well. Collaboration and talking to each other, not sharing solutions, so co-solutioning as well, and co-thinking for our planet. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We have a fika break now. If the coffee and cakes are ready, give me a thumbs up, someone. Yes, they are. All right, so please head out there and enjoy the fika. We will come back in exactly 25 minutes at 3:25 for our next session on innovation for climate action. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me? Hello? Hi, can you? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oscar, can you hear me? Oscar, can you hear me? Yeah, but can you hear me? I'm not able to. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Yes. Are you going to forward the slides? Okay. Are you going to forward the slides? Yeah, that's perfect. And let me know when I have to start. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I hope everyone enjoyed the coffee and the cakes and the cookies and some sort of food for thought and afterthought for food. But let's get started with our next session. And this session primarily focuses on innovation for climate action. The need for innovating for climate action is out there. It's obvious. We don't have to spell it out. There are innovations that are happening across the world. How do we learn about them? How do we get people from different geographies to is engaging India at Almedalen, through which we try and connect with stakeholders from Sweden and stakeholders from India to talk about innovation, to share ideas, and to see how they can together solve for planetary and for climate challenges. How does innovation also trigger a green transformation when it comes to a resilient food production system? Last year, we did bring about some of the case studies from India and from Sweden. This year, again, we have some of those case studies on how food production and how farming is becoming more resilient. Of course, there are certain challenges which we will talk about in our panel discussion, but there is movement. And we'll also touch upon how can we scale the initiatives and the innovation and the collaboration which has started. So some of these are at a seed level now, are still small, but some are extremely big. And first up, I would like to start with Dr. Tanjore Balganesh. He was to be here with us in person. Unfortunately, due to last-minute emergency, he could not. But he has very, very kindly agreed to present from Pennsylvania, where he is at the moment. Dr. Balganesh has a background in biotechnology and antibacterial drug discovery, focusing on innovative solutions in the agriculture sector as well. His work involves developing biotechnological applications to improve crop yield and sustainability in farming practices. He's also been awarded an honorary doctoral degree from Uppsala University. And if you can hear us, Dr. Balganesh, a very, very warm welcome from campus Gotland of Uppsala University. Can we go live with him, please? Dr. Balganesh, we can hear you. Please go start.
Thank you. Thank you very much, respected ambassadors, colleagues, and friends. Very good afternoon. I hope you're enjoying the session so far. We are dealing with a topic which is affecting the lives of every one of us, irrespective of what profession we are in. I'm also very grateful to the organizers, Swami and team, and my sincere apologies for not showing up there. I was really looking forward to come back to Uppsala simply because I've had some very, very good associations there. So apologies on that. I'm sure Mayank has already spoken to you in detail on what PI is doing today, where it wants to go, and what changes it is making as we go forward in terms of understanding the plant, the pathogen, and the environment. Previously, it was only the plant and pathogen. Today, I think nothing will happen if we do not understand what changes the environment is bringing. So I'm going to talk about one specific aspect of agricultural practice, and that is the use and introduction of biologicals as a support. I'm being very careful in saying that it is not an alternative, but as a support to help plant protection, plant health, as well as soil regeneration. So before I go into my slides, one word on what does biologicals mean, because in different areas, it probably refers to slightly different contexts. So in the pharma, biologicals generally refers to any metabolite or any part or chemical that the body makes, which is then made by biotechnological means, and that's referred to as biologicals. There are various definitions, but I'll leave it at that. In the agricultural area, we are basically talking biologicals as microbes, microbe secreted or produced metabolites, or metabolites by themselves purified from microbes, which can also be made through biotechnological means. So that's the broad definition of biologicals that I'm talking about. If you can go back to the previous slide, biologicals is not new. It's been around for, if you will see, way back there was antifungals being used, and then you had, in fact, BT came in as early as in the 1920s. And then many of the things that we're even using today, like Bacillus subtilis or trichoderma, have been around for decades. So it's not that biologicals is coming in brand new concept, no, but we've obviously improved on what is available and how we're going to use them more efficiently. Now, if you go to the next slide, briefly, if you look at how agricultural patterns have changed, and this for me is a fascinating line that if you look from early 1900s to where we are today, started with small farms. And then in the early 1990s, late 1990s, and then quickly realized that small farms are difficult to manage in terms of labor and ability to produce larger amounts as far as demand is concerned. So we moved from that economic size farms actually drove to larger farms, which obviously then said we needed mechanization to deal with that. So we had tractors, and then we went from normal general farming to precision farming. Then came the concept that, okay, we've got larger farms, we got mechanization, we need to do something of making the irrigation more efficient. So we went in from traditional methods to today, there's a lot more on drip and precision irrigation. So if you look at this flow, then comes the fertilizers, soil management, crop protection, and finally, where are we today? We are talking about using big data. And what does that mean? That means that we are capable of generating lots and lots of data points from different parts of the farm, from different plants in the farm. We are able to see what's the nutrition level, what's the humidity, so on and so forth. But then data has to be converted to knowledge. And that's where I think today there is lots more and more of AI-driven, ML-driven activities where we can collect these data and see how we can best use them. I'll touch upon this at the very end of my talk. So what I wanted to show you in this slide was we just look how one has driven the other. Size of the farm has driven mechanization. Mechanization is asked to become more efficient irrigation. And then obviously we went into crop protection, and now we are talking about how to use these various data points. So that's, to me, the broad cycle of how this whole area of farming has developed. If you go to the next slide, you asked the question, I said previously, biologicals are not new. So ask why biologicals? What's driving biologicals today? And why do we need to bring it in? farmers need biologicals to grow crops. This is a very sort of a 37,000 feet statement, but an imperative need for technologies which improve soil health. Now, that is something which is, decades ago we recognized, but right now we are saying the soil has come to certain conditions where it is no longer producing at the same level as where we started off decades ago. We need to do something to regenerate the soil. We need to do something to bring it better health, or in other words, how do you bring in the biodiversity that was there originally, which has got sort of skewed by use as well as by the use of various chemical pesticides. Okay, so having come to biologicals, then you ask the question, all right, is this just a concept where we're talking about biologicals, academically sounds good, should we be working on it type? No. If you will see, biologicals is a great business opportunity today. We are, lots and lots of farmers have actually used it, have found it useful, and that's why there is a great demand for it. That's one part of the story. The other part of the story is that, like we said, biologicals have been around for a long period of time, microbes to help plant health. But are we there at the same level? No. Clearly, biotechnology has allowed us now to take advantage of the various technologies available to improve on how to address these problems, issues, as well as how we can look at prevention. So new generations of biologicals are available, which are more efficient, which are more compatible with soil health and biodiversity. Lastly, I think, which is one of our biggest issues and one of the topics that this forum is addressing is climatology. There has been huge unpredictability on climate changes. Chemicals cannot address those because chemicals address more a plant-pathogen relationship, but do not address the environment as a whole. Biologicals give you that opportunity where you can get the plants to be more resilient, to be more ability to more ward off invaders when there is stress, as well as when there are adverse conditions. So today, biologicals are not just a lab academic concept. It's gone from being that to something which is much more user-friendly as well as commercially viable simply because the farmers have accepted it. We need to go back 2 slides, please. One more. All right, so if you go to the next slide, go forward, please. All right, so what is our understanding of biologicals? I'm talking about biologicals, and it's a vast area. Just quickly tell you, we classify them into various generations, 1st to the 5th generation, and probably you're going to get many more as we go forward. First is what we used to use previously, a microbe. Second is a microbe plus a metabolite. Third is a purified metabolite. And the 4th and 5th generations are new technologies like peptides, synthesized metabolites, and the newer biologicals, which are not there, but clearly conceptually, we are every day seeing new and new innovations coming. We are talking about RNA and DNA. So we've got a whole host of these biologicals from the 1st generation to the 5th generation and probably the nth generation. And it's not that we will jump from 1 to 5. I think each one of them plays a role as far as soil biodiversity is concerned, soil preservation is concerned. So we expect that we will be using these in a more coordinated fashion. If you go to the next slide, please. All right, so this is just to give you a glimpse of the world of biologicals. It's not as simple as the word biologicals itself is what we're talking about. We classified them into fertilizers, stimulants, pesticides, biocontrol agents, and so on. And you can group them based on what response they elicit in the plant. This is an extremely important statement that I'm making. We are not talking about just going and dealing with the pathogen. We are talking about a specific response that we can elicit in the plant using a biological. And that response in turn helps the plant, perhaps on one hand, to ward off the pathogen. On the other is to deal with its own metabolism in terms of the abiotic stress, in terms of different issues that the microbial flora around it brings in. So this is where biologicals are very different from chemicals. They bring in that specificity which allows you to deal with a specific problem. Of course, it also involves, you can talk about narrow spectrum versus broad spectrum. If you induce resistance in a plant, then obviously it's a broad spectrum. But then the moment the biological effect is gone, the plant is back to its normal shape. So if we go to the next slide, just to give you an idea of how newer new information that is coming is impacting our use of biologicals. Genome sequence. We are understanding plant genome sequence. It's not just the sequence that we are understanding. We are understanding the interplay of the various genes, the environment, as well as we are now very much advanced into synthetic biology, which allows us to design and develop specific biologicals. Second, I think, which is a very big advantage, is that biologicals are generally a narrow spectrum. Some of them are designed to be pathogen specific or stage specific. In the example, we can induce resistance in the seed. But what's more important, it does not disturb the biodiversity of the soil, which I think is, if you look at how we're going to deal with what has already happened in terms of the changes, we need to bring back the microflora which was there generations back. And biologicals don't disturb that. Biologicals add to that biodiversity. They can increase tolerance in the plant so that it can deal with various stresses which it comes across. I'm sorry, I'm having a problem of not being able to see my slide. Just give me 1 second. All right, and the last one is, like I said, resistance is not an issue because this is plant driven, and the biologicals act on essential systems in the plant, so that there is no way of developing resistance against it. And the last one is, we have learned using the various technologies how to scale up, how to make more of it, how to purify it, how to make sure we have quality control on this, and lastly, how we can apply them. Underlying all this is one significant aspect of biologicals, which I kept saying, is that they induce a certain response. And inducing a response requires very small amount of material. So technically, the amount of biologicals that you need to induce a response vis-a-vis what you need as stoichiometry in a chemical pesticide is very different. You need much, much lower amounts of the biological, which also adds to your cost of goods. which helps in your cost of goods, as well as minimum disturbance with the plant metabolite. The last two slides, I will just talk a little bit on PI. PI has a number of, previous slide, please, a number of products which are already in the market, which are making, which has allowed PI to get into the biological space. These are biostimulants, some of them are pesticides, and some of them are also helping in soil health. Now, where do we want to go from here? And I think this is not just PI thinking, it is a thinking across the agricultural sector. And PI, as usual, Mayank sitting there must have already said this, is basically trying how to leverage the science to convert to a technology which then comes back to use. So we are looking at crop protection, we are looking at crop solutions. We are also making sure that these are compatible with the diversity that we are talking about. And my last point before I stop is where does PI want to go? We've spent a lot of effort in accumulating data using digital technology. We want to be able to use this data to predict crop stress due to external factors. There are three players, if you'll remember that I said. It's the plant, it's the pathogen, it's the environment. External factors may not be completely predictable today. Excuse me. But we hope that as we go forward, even if we get waves that we can understand, today we are talking about waves of vaccination, waves of which we can say, okay, this is bound to happen down the line. We should be able to build a library of biologicals, both biostimulants and biopesticides, and we are on the way to do this so that we can react appropriately to these changes. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you, and back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Balaganesh. And I think Dr. Balaganesh touched upon also the collection of data and a data library. And how does one actually use data-driven models to improve and to make the food production system more resilient. And keeping with that theme, may I call Viral Thakkar back on stage, please. Viral, the last time you were here, we heard about a very interesting tech-driven solution that's helping farmers in India reduce burning stubble after harvesting the crop. And that's something which Meher spoke about also as an example today. Now, could you take us through the journey and how it has progressed in the last 1 year?
Thanks, Rupali.
You have your mic.
So thanks again for the opportunity to share almost a report card of what we've done in the last 2 years. So Meher set this up quite nicely, actually, where she articulated the problem that exists in North India. So two broad cropping seasons. Rice is what's in fall between June to October, and what's interesting is that given that there's a desire to take a second crop, which happens in a short span, about 30 days or less, there is a strong, attraction to consider burning the stubble. And why is that the case? Is because a vast majority of farmers are small and marginal, which means that they have 5 acres or less as their area. And the other unfortunate thing is that, therefore, they are unable to afford the equipment that you need to take care of the stubble. And stubble disposal typically happens in 2 ways. One is called in situ, which is where you mulch the stubble into the soil. Second is ex situ, where you take the stubble and convert it to bales and then have downstream applications, very similar to, again, what Meher described. substantial impact to not just the soil quality but farm productivity as well, because it raises the soil temperature, and also has approximately a 15 million disability adjusted life year impact in North India. So that's, if you assume that an average Indian lives for 75 years, which is not really the case, we're still talking about 200,000 people dying every year as a result. So that's the scale of the problem. And obviously there is productivity loss because they close schools sometimes and the flights get delayed, etc., etc. So that's really the scale of the problem. Punjab accounts for a vast majority. Haryana and Uttar Pradesh are the other two, and more recently Madhya Pradesh as well. These are big states in North India. Essentially the food production hub of the country. So our intervention, we started out in 21, where we met farmers, tried to understand what the problems were and what it is that they were facing and how could this be solved. We started with a pilot in 6 villages, got stubble burning down by 69% in 22, which is when I came to speak to you guys last year. The intervention had 3 components. One was a platform, think of it as Uber for farmers, that allowed farmers who had the equipment to share their equipment with their fellow farmers, obviously at a cost. And the resultant stubble would be sold to industry and others, and it would pay for the cost of the removal. Second, and probably the biggest part of the intervention was a door-to-door campaign that took, that basically educated farmers to say, don't burn the stubble. You now have an alternate use of your stubble into, either a biofertilizer or a compressed biogas and so on. And then the third one was actually we actually seeded this program with a few equipment that, that essentially made this happen. Last year saw a scale up by 111%. So went from 6 villages to 666, 1.2 million acres, roughly 150,000 farmers. Similar model, with the exception that now support, to farmers was omni-channel. So you could use an app, you could go to the website, you could make a phone call, you could send a WhatsApp message, you could send a WhatsApp voice message, right? So multiple ways, essentially how to make it frictionless for farmers to seek assistance. Working very closely with each and every district administrator. So India has what are called collectors in each district. So working very closely with them, customizing this intervention in each district to the local requirements. And very importantly, this year, which was different, was working with the downstream industrial users to say, how could we make this stubble available to industrial users for them to deploy? So Indian Oil, which is the largest oil company in India, has an ethanol plant nearby in a location called Panipat. So almost 20% of the feedstock that was utilized by them came from this particular program, and so on. So that was the intervention, and 55% reduction in stubble burning incidents. And by the way, these are tracked through satellite data. It's published on a daily basis, so anybody can verify what the reduction was. So anxious moments there, a few days, but overall, reduction of 55%. So what's the plan this year? This year, we've taken on the bull by the horn, going into Punjab, which is the biggest culprit, so to speak, but also the biggest potential, solution. So starting with in a district called Patiala, so a pilot program there, and working with World Bank in Uttar Pradesh and hopefully in Madhya Pradesh as well, to make this platform available to further improve mechanization across farms and to bring in sustainable practices going forward. There's also an interesting pilot with what's called NABARD, which is a rural development bank, to disseminate fertilizer through drones, which they claim will reduce water use by 95% and fertilizer use by 50%. We'll see how that goes. But essentially, the biggest focus going forward is to say, if we don't burn this stubble, how do I, so A, continue to reduce that, but then to whatever extent the stubble is not burned, looking for ways to deploy that stubble into productive use. So again, probably the biggest consequential use of this is going to be for compressed biogas, which it can easily generate. And ethanol could be another one. Interesting thing about the ethanol ecosystem, which we've also looked at this year, is there is a potential pathway to sustainable aviation fuel via ethanol, what's called the ATJ pathway. And India is coming up with so India has an ambition to utilize SAF for 5% of international flights by 2030. So the mandate is, well, it's not a mandate yet. The goal is 1% by 27, 2% by 28, and 5% by 2030. It is likely to become a mandate. If all goes well, the stubble that is not burnt, and even if you take 25% of that stubble and repurpose it to SAF, it can produce 10 times what India is going to need in 2030, which obviously makes for an export opportunity or to further decarbonize domestic flights as well. We think the economics are within striking range. About 30% or so is what we can get to. But with the right kind of collaboration and incentives, we believe that that gap can also be bridged. So that's my report card for 23. I hope to be back next year. If it goes well, I'll be standing, otherwise I'll be in a corner somewhere, trying to hide from all of you. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Viral, and 110% jump, as well as a lot of very impressive figures out there. And we hope you will be back here next year, where we will see how this innovation has scaled even further. And it's a fantastic, fantastic story. Thank you. So staying with AgTech, staying with energy, let's quickly move on to our next panel. May I please call on stage Jacob Kiefer, former Ambassador of Sustainable and Responsible Businesses at the Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Professor Tor Broström, specializing in sustainable energy measures in buildings at Uppsala University, and also the scientific coordinator of the Swedish National R&D Program on Energy Efficiency in Historic Buildings. Gunilla Rosenqvist, the project leader at Blått Centrum, which translates to Blue Center, focusing on sustainable marine and coastal development, including sustainable blue foods. Per Ostborn, project leader at Gröna Mobilister, advocating for green mobility solutions. And Swaminathan Ramanathan, Swami as we know him, who specializes in knowledge creation at the intersections of academia, industry, and policy, as well as research. He's with Uppsala University as well as with Deloitte. So let's start here with Jacob. Jacob, can you share some of the innovative technologies, for example, that Spoudy is using? Because apart from your, you being sort of a brand ambassador for Sweden on sustainability earlier on, you now look after the board, or you are part of the board at a green tech company called Spoudy, also my colleague in that. Yep. How is Spoudy solving for food production, creating a more resilient food production through technology?
Well, thank you, Rupali, and thank you very much to everybody, Ambassador, and everybody behind this initiative. I think you all understand that India is the continent, the country, where Sweden is really focusing its attention. Before doing this sustainable business, I was number 2 in Beijing, in China, in 2010. And well, that has waned off a little bit to many reasons. We don't have to go into that, but you get that same type of buzz around your country ambassador. But it's also in a very unequal type of development, as we saw in China, where the cities are leading, and you wonder what will happen with the countryside, and what will happen with these millions of people living off their land, or trying to live off their land. So a year ago, I was asked to join the board of Spaudi, and Spaudi is I would say it's more like a scale-up now, but there's an innovation behind it. It's a small solar panel that you carry in one hand. It goes and feeds energy to a power unit, and in that unit there's a compressor that gives air to a pump that you put in water, and that water is then filtered through drip lines. And that will create remarkable results, as we have seen in India. We have worked through an organization called SEVA, Self-Employed Women Association, because we are a small startup in the northern part of Sweden. We cannot be the last mile distributor. But through SEVA, we have this organization and some collaboration with some local banks, we have been able to bring that technology to mainly women farmers. And the results have been phenomenal. Triple their income, triple their yield, 80% water reduction compared to flood irrigation. And from a diplomat's point of view, we have to think about how we feed the planet. And 1/3 of the food is produced by small-scale farmers, where the productivity is the lowest. So we just feel there's a super opportunity for everybody to grow. And outside India, you see the same thing in Central America. Migration pressure because of climate change. Where do they go? They go to the US. Do the US want these refugees? No. They want them to stay. So we try to find ways where people can live off their land, not just from day to day, but also become entrepreneurs. So that's a little bit the perspective.
Well,
I get excited about this. You know this. No, sorry.
We all do. We have very long debates and discussions when we meet in office. But talking about from agriculture, that's debatable again. And talking about, well, food production, let's move on to blue foods as well. What does Blåttcentrum do, and how does it look at sustainable food systems as part of what you do?
So Blue Food is Swedish collaboration to look at how we can change a little bit what we eat, but also change the attitude of people. So going from more of the meat, maybe to use everything from algae to fish and use the whole fish. And the Blue Center is this collaboration between Uppsala University, the county administration board, and the region of Gotland. And the strength of that is that we have all these government together, and we can sit and talk about challenges, which is one is the food, and water is of course another one. So, but I think for the Blue Food is something that engaged a lot of people and should engage a lot of people, because we need to change a little bit what we eat. And I think India, you are better than Sweden in that respect. Sweden has a long tradition of being meat eaters and not using the resources in the water as well. So I think that's the place where we have a lot to learn from each other, yes.
And interestingly, you all also work in the energy space as far as, so you do have some collaborations, I think, with for looking at wind energy and other clean energy initiatives?
Yes, we do. And I think for us at the Blue Center, that is mostly engaging in how we can use wind, offshore wind, in a multidisciplinary way. Because I think the water is going to be a resource that's going to be limited. And if we need the wind power, but we also need the area. So if we can use it for other sources like algae or mussel or helping the fish or whatever it can be, I think we have to think in that way. So it cannot just be the different activities. So I think that is something that is really, really important for the future, yes.
And I'll come to you, Swami. So Jacob and Gunilla spoke about, thank you. Jacob and Gunilla spoke about food production and how innovation can kind of solve for some of the challenges in food production. And also, one of the key challenges is also about energy, right? How much energy goes into producing what we produce. And that's why we also have Tor and Per here who are going to reflect on the energy bit. But how do you, and since you do put together academia, industry, as well as policy thoughts together, how would you connect food production, energy, and how we can sort of make it easier, cleaner, more efficient, as well as better for our planet?
Thanks, Rupali. I think it's an interesting question, and as usual, I'm left with the most difficult question to answer. So, no, I think there are a couple of ways in which this could be looked at, and I think there are a few examples in India that are taking place. One is an example of a foundation which is trying to go ahead and start with a concept saying that water is the new carbon. So when you start looking at water as the new carbon, then you're going ahead and looking at water as something that needs to be quantified in a manner that everyone understands it in the same way and has a direct application to different use cases and business cases. And of course, this has both geopolitical and geoeconomic implications because there are certain countries which are importing a lot of food, fruits, vegetables, etc. And by default, it's embedded water. So how do you sort of go ahead and account for that kind of a water? So the moment you start looking at water as new carbon, that's one kind of a framework where you're able to go ahead and start having collaborations, cooperations, conversations, communication that brings in a certain quantifiable way of doing this. That's one. The second is to go ahead and try and do things which is at a L2 or an L3 level, which is more in terms of eco-efficiency, use lesser energy, lesser amounts of water. I think Meher gave this great example of that potato farming example where it's 7 liters turns to 1 liter. I think Spouty is doing a great job with going ahead and looking at solar irrigation pumps. But those would be what would be called as process efficiencies or output efficiencies. So you need to have conversations that happens at both levels. One at the level of actions which are very specific and direct and can be measured. And second would be to go ahead and look at water as an commodity that has the same quantifiability as energy or as carbon for that matter.
Well, that's really interesting, Swami, and perhaps we'll touch upon that with Jacob in a bit, but I want to bring in Tor as well as Per here. So you spoke about energy efficiencies and also you spoke about the input, right? So the energy input. You've been doing some fascinating research as far as energy efficiency in buildings and especially historical buildings, which is sort of legacy that has been created. Now, how do you retrofit in many ways and make buildings which are already in existence more energy efficient? And I think there's some examples here at Uppsala campus, Gotland itself, that you worked on.
I'll try to answer your question or elaborate on the theme using 2 case studies on the island of Gotland. We have 92 medieval churches on the Gotland countryside on an island with 60,000 people. So is that an asset or a burden? Well, a little bit of both. But they're about 800 years old, and we have a responsibility to the future generations to preserve them, at least aiming for another 800 years. And now we're facing climate change. And these churches are not used extensively. Swedish people are not very religious these days. So the main challenge is to stop them from decaying. And the main threats are biohazards. It's mold, it's fungi, and wood-boring insects. And as climate change is coming, we can expect these problems to get worse. So the question is how to deal with that in a resource-efficient way. If energy was unlimited, we could easily solve it by heating and dehumidification, but we need passive, low-tech methods to do that. The second case study that I would like to bring in is the World Heritage Town of Visby. And here we're talking about mitigation of climate change, reducing the CO2 footprint of the built heritage in Visby. And technical solutions are necessary but not sufficient. And much of our research has been focusing on facilitating informed decisions, aiming to come up with proper solutions for each building or each type of building, rather than telling people what to do in detail beforehand. So this is an outline of our research, and possibly I can come back to talk more about what we've actually done.
You can touch upon what you've actually done, that's fine. We'd like to hear about it. So.
Yes. So going back to the churches, I'd like to, as an example, mention one project that has developed over the years in a sort of a tripod of cooperation between the researchers of Uppsala University, the church organization, and the local tech company. So I mentioned the threat of climate change and biohazards. And now we're monitoring the indoor climate in all 92, or almost all 92 churches continuously. And data is available in an app. So rather than finding out that we had mold growth and what to do about it, there's an alarm going on. There will be an alarm in the phone, so you can do something to prevent these damages. And of course, that's both in economic terms and in terms of saving the cultural heritage, that's the most important thing. But it's also allows us to involve the local church organization in the management of churches rather than doing it top down. And as for Visby, and now we're changing the scale completely. We've been part of developing European guidelines for improving energy performance in historic buildings. So this is a process that would facilitate an informed decision for each building, bringing us a number of appropriate solutions that would be suitable for that particular building, rather than having broad instructions of what to do and what not to do.
Well, that's interesting because we know that at Campus Gotland we can see on a big screen as soon as we enter the main building that how much of well there are solar panels, and we can see how much energy is not being consumed as yet, but how much energy is being generated by the solar panels. So the way data is being captured, especially on clean energy, is interesting. Per, bringing you in, a lot of the way we utilize cleaner energy compared to sort of fossil fuels, for example, it also has to do with consumer behavior, and it also has to do with what we learn, what we unlearn, and in our daily lives. Gröna Mobilista, I believe, also helps with that. Could you take us through how you go about that and what the what the results have been? Any example that you could share?
Yeah, thank you, Rupali. So, as you said, I work for Gröna Mobilista, or in English, the Green Mobilists or the Green Motorists, and we are a consumer organization. And we also try to make it easy for consumers, for citizens to make sustainable choices, and in so doing we promote sustainable policies, and in particular we try to promote policies involving transparency in industry, and also to promote the dissemination of this information, data from the industry, in the form of consumer information, eco-labels, health warnings, and so on point of sale of fossil fuel, renewable fuel, and other products and services in the transportation sector. And as examples of what we have done, we have helped introducing here in Sweden eco-labels on most gas stations, fuel pumps, and also some charging stations. And we have also nudged the current Swedish government to propose eco-labels on all new cars, involving not only the driving phase but also the production phase, taking into account extraction of minerals and so on, and the emission they generate. And to speak about scalability. I think this idea, or if you may say innovation, is so simple that it's very easy to scale, and it can be adopted anywhere in the world if you take into account cultural differences and, of course, differences when it comes to availability of relevant data. And realizing the scalability across the world, we collaborate with people in many different countries. And so far, there are warning labels on all gas pumps in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which of course is known as a very progressive university town. And they may soon be up, the warning labels on all gas pumps in the state of Hawaii. And we have also seen interest from lots of other countries, South Africa, China, South Korea, and so on, but nothing's still happening much. And sorry for taking so much time, but finally I must say that, as you have probably already been thinking in the audience, that this idea is very simple to the health information and warning labels on cigarette packs, which have had some significant influence in making smoking less normal, or rather abnormal.
So, very interesting points on sort of various different aspects which are being looked at for cleaner energy in production of different we're looking at different sectors in that sense. But to come to the point of scale, which you touched upon, Per, I'll put that to you first, Swami. There are challenges when one moves from prototyping to project to, say, the initial phase 1 to then scaling. And perhaps I can go to you after that, Jacob, because you have an interesting example to share. Now, how does one overcome those challenges, or how does one accelerate from market, like innovation, to actually reach the endpoint where it can be usable?
So probably I'll start off with a absolutely out-of-the-box kind of an example. I'm not sure how many people in this room, I'm sure the Indians would know, but many who are not from India may not know, but the world's first completely 100% certified organic state was Sikkim, which was certified in 2016. So it's everything that is grown in Sikkim. State, it's like, state would be a region here, is completely 100% certified organic, and it's the world's first. So everything from tomatoes to carrots to onions is 100% organic. So the state doesn't use any chemicals, doesn't import any chemical fertilizers, does not allow for that, and does not spray anything chemical. So if one is looking at scale from the perspective of, is it scalable? Is sustainability or climate action or sustainable solutions scalable? There are several models available, it's just that we need to sort of expand the scope of how we are looking and sort of bring in other examples from geographies which typically don't get that focus, so to speak. So that's possible. The second is also to go ahead and look at how do you scale. So that one is what is scale, and the second is how do you scale. So what is scale is either you can, so I think we had a very interesting conversation during FICA conversation where I think one of the students asked a question about solar panels. So it's not the technology itself, but how the technology is being mobilized in order to go ahead and produce a certain efficient output that is acceptable to business and market. So you can have solar panels that could be used as large solar farms, but you can also use the same solar panels on rooftop and have local energy networks. So scale doesn't necessarily mean size. So you can have scale that is networked. Okay. So you can have micro units that network with each other, and you can have different kinds of local energy networks, for instance. So scale and size are two separate things. So I'll probably stop here. Because then I can keep going on and on.
All right.
And
so
I'll leave it at that.
How does one sort of scale, either through a network effect or through sort of going to, scaling in terms of size? Any challenges that you'd like to highlight and how one can overcome that? Jacob.
Well, I've been giving this quite some thought. You know, we have 500 million small-scale farms out there in the world. And around every farm, you can imagine there's a father, mother, and brothers and sisters and all that. And I'm just thinking a lot, I mean, how do we have 2.5 billion people living off small-scale farms, something like that. And you come from a country like Sweden with 10 million. And you start to think that we have an innovation that could target at least 200 million of these people. So what I've started to do is a little bit trying to calculate how much water will be saved per farm if you utilize one system. And what would happen if you multiply that and have a factor of 10 up to, you know, maybe 30,000? Because if you don't take the big numbers in your mouth, you start to end up with pilots. Let's do a pilot project and we measure. And then somewhere there down the line, policymakers get a little bit lost. So I've started the other way around. If we want to collaborate with Spaudi, can you take a project of 30,000? Not now, but at least this is ours. With 30,000, we can save 7 days of water running through the Niagara Falls, fresh water, or 60,000 trucks going back and forth to Los Angeles and New York. Add a zero to that. So I think you have to start to be a little bit more courageous in your mindset, and that's why these guys, Musk and Gates and they don't feel that limit, but policymakers do, and they find all the reasons why we can't do this. So that's one thing, and the second thing is I think finance. The money is there, the farmer is here, and in between those two, there's an ocean of obstructions. Middle managers, midmen, like myself, I guess, in my old day. So here's also something, but it's happening now. And I think India could really be one of those places because now you can utilize IT. Every farmer has some type of smart farm app. Apply for a loan, credit, puff, there you go. So we're quite optimistic, but also frustrated, I guess, impatient.
Well, thanks for that, Jacob. So you spoke about sort of the gap that exists really to scale, right? I'm being shown a placard which says 1 minute. That was 2 minutes ago. So I'll take just very, very quick answers. Per, coming to you, network effect, how does it work? Very, very quickly, because that's something which Green Mobilist works
Network
on.
effects are very important because the most important part, as you said, Jakob, is getting the politicians to realize that this is simple to implement. If they just decide to do it. So my experience, if you build a network of collaborators, partners, gradually, it very quickly will yield results if you're determined.
How about you, in terms of sort of network effect, to kind of, you work on with other partners on a common goal. So how does the network effect work for Blåcentrum?
I think it works well, and I think one of the reasons is that we are on an island and we have a very tight connection and it's close and we can talk to each other. And I think that is really important, exactly what you were saying too, that we need to collaborate and we need to show that there's a win-win situation, which this is. And I think that is one of the most important things. And it doesn't need to be very big, as you said from the beginning. And I think we very often talk that everything should be big. We should scale up, but we don't need to. We can also collaborate and do it in a smaller scale.
Well, very interesting perspectives. Thanks, Gunilla. And final word to Tor. So with the innovation and with the research, rather, that you all have been working on, can that be shared across, beyond sort of borders? And how does one take all this research and then perhaps translate it somewhere else or try it somewhere else with a collaboration?
Thank you. I was hoping for that question. We have already transformed our research on urban energy modeling in a historic context to Egypt with a completely different set of techniques and materials, and also where the challenge is cooling rather than heating, and it works fine. And I see no reason why we couldn't, bring our methods to India. And when it comes, I mentioned the churches on Gotland, and I know that India has a very strong tradition when it comes to traditional materials and techniques. Lime is a very important material on Gotland. The best book on the use of lime in historic buildings is written by an Indian. So I see many opportunities to have an exchange of methods and approaches, even if the solutions in the end are not exactly the same. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Swami, Tor, Jacob, Gunilla, and Per for your time. And with that, I'm going to request you all to take your seats and very quickly call, if I can call Jacob Hallenkreutz. He is the Group CEO of EPSI and the moderator for our next session, which is scaling up for sustainability, where we have invited a lot of young startups to pitch what they are doing, and followed by a quick Q&A, following which we'll have a wrap-up with Swami Uwe, and then we will close on time.
Lovely. Mute? No? 1, 2, 1, 2. Good to see you. My name is Jacob. I'm the group CEO. I'm also associate professor here at Uppsala University. I've been elsewhere talking about sustainability challenges all day, and especially the sustainability paradox. We know what to do, but we don't do it. So the theme now is starting up for sustainability, and at this time of day, you can't help thinking about the Rolling Stones. If you start me up, I'll never stop. I'm honestly not sure if Mick Jagger referred to sustainable development, but we can always hope for that. Starting up for sustainability, we will now learn more about 3 exciting startups. And I think we welcome them all on stage at once here. So please, Rutvika Acharya, co-founder and CEO of Moi, please enter the stage with a big round of applause. Yes. And then we have Professor Joydeep Datta and Michael Neumann representing Keto Coat. Yes, you're alone, or yes. He's up there. Yeah. He's working remotely, like during the pandemic. Yeah. And then we, last but not least, Kent Moore, CCO at Drev, or what is Drev? Drev is fine. Lovely. I made it. Yes. So we will do this swiftly. You will now give us your short sprint presentations, your sort of elevator pitch about your startup in 3 minutes each. So there is your slide changer. So Rutvika, please hit it.
Hi everyone, I'm Rutvika, the founder of Moi, is it better? Okay. Where we are on a mission to transform human migration. A lot of people here might relate to it, but why do we actually need to change migration? So imagine you've arrived to a new country with no friends or family, not knowing the language, trying to understand how to get a driver's license or a child's schooling system. Overwhelming, right? As a migrant of 20 years myself and someone who has relocated multiple times for work, I know this feeling too well. And while there are many solutions out there today supporting with the initial move, did you know that it is the lack of support after arrival that leads to a massive turnover of 42% among international employees? A very expensive problem, especially in times of growing labor shortages. And this is why we are building Moi, where we are on a mission to enable global talent migration with 100% retention. Our AI-powered mobility solution will not only help employers to plan, manage, and execute moves with ease and compliance, but also help employees and their families to actually structurally onboard and integrate into the country that they have moved to. In just a few months, we've gone from a concept to having validated the problem with over 150 internationals as well as 30 large multinational companies. Right now, we have entered 5 partnerships, secured multiple LOIs, also our first phase pilot, and hopefully the second one's in the pipeline very, very soon. We were recently awarded with the Game Changer Adventure Cup East Finals, and we are also backed by the Accelerator Startup Bootcamp. Going forward, what we want to do is, of course, have more pilots. We are also fundraising at the moment. So if you do find what we're doing interesting, please do reach out to me with any of the About channels. And also any of the internationals here, if you need any help to establish your life with ease here in Sweden, please do not hesitate to reach out for help. Thank you.
Lovely. Just hand over the microphone to Kittercoat, and let's hear about your elevator pitch.
Yes, hello everybody. So I want to thank everybody that now I jumped for having us here. I want to start by asking a question. How many of you have thrown out food recently? Raise your hand. Yeah. And we at Kittercoat want to change that by saying no to food waste. Because there goes a lot of resources into getting food. Fresh water, energy, land areas, money, carbon dioxide. And still, 40% of all food that's produced is thrown out each year. This could feed 3 billion people, and still 1 billion is starving. And with our solution that's made from seafood waste or plant-based mushrooms, we can prolong the shelf life of fruits and vegetables. Our coating is edible, biodegradable, allergen and plastic-free. Easy to apply by spray, dipping or brushing. You can easily see the coated fruits. We tested in India on pineapple, mango and avocado. It went from around 3 to 5 days up to 3 weeks. And this is big. So, our coating acts as a barrier, keeping moisture inside and gases outside. It's also antimicrobial, destroying microorganisms. And so, by extending shelf life of fruits and vegetables, we can significantly decrease the food waste and work against the global goal on reducing food waste by half by 2030. And as I mentioned, we're antimicrobial. So we stop harmful microorganisms, making food much safer to eat. So you will get more nutritious food, safer food, but you will also reduce the death of non-communicable diseases. We also benefit the farmers. We benefit the farmers by diversity. And we have a coating that's made from plant-based chitin, a biopolymer. And lastly, we want to reduce the plastic packaging, and also we will use less cold storage for the fruits and vegetables. So we will reduce the impact in the food supply chain. So I want to summarize up by saying we prolong the shelf life on fruits and vegetables. We eatable and plastic free, have a very low cost, and we thought by Indian and we made in Sweden. Thank you very much.
Lovely, impressive, yes. Last but not least.
Thank you. Bit of a fast forward there. Ambassador Lal, guests. My name is Kent. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of DREV, and we are the future of contamination control systems. And what we mean by that is that we're creating high-tech cleaning equipment to increase safety, efficiency, and sustainability towards the next industrial revolution. Now, the problem with the battery facilities is that these are massive facilities. You need to maintain these 24/7 with traditional cleaning equipment. You can imagine walking around with a mop and bucket and cleaning 20 football fields of battery particles that are highly dangerous for employees. They're also very reactive materials. And they're doing this with chemicals, 2.5 million liters of water per year for a standard battery factory, millions of liters of chemicals. And our team at DREV, coming from the original Tesla team at Panasonic, as well as Northvolt, we have developed a patent-pending technology which removes the need for chemicals or waters, and we also enable the recycling of these battery particles that are today being completely wasted. We do that with mechanically releasing the particles to make them airborne, and then we're enabling the transportation to recycling facilities of the materials that we've collected. Meher eloquently mentioned the topic of profitability, people and planet, and this is exactly what we're focusing on. On the planet aspect, enabling the recycling, but also helping our customers meet regulations in the EU and the US. Safety, there's been explosions in battery facilities, and we're mitigating these topics. We're a young company, we just registered last year, but we have 3 pilot projects, both in the US and in paid pilot projects in the EU. And we're looking to enter the Indian market to support the battery industry there. Also solar panel and semiconductor industries, we can see a lot of support needed, both in the methodology and the technology aspect. So we're currently in the seed round raising 3 million and looking for partnerships outside of the EU and the US. So please reach out and we're here to support. Thank you.
Lovely. Come on, guys. Let's gather around here. We have time for a super swift Q&A, and I've just one question for you, and that's, what's your main challenge? What's the main challenge you're facing?
Like, our main challenge is to get approval from EFSA and EU Commission to start using our product. We have GRAS approved ingredients, but to get the stamp, like, oh, it's okay to use.
So that's legislation, regulations, compliance, that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Our main challenge is funding. So the battery industry is very focused on building these facilities, and very few know about the problem. So we're moving with a real sense of urgency to be able to provide the technology in time, especially around 2025 when we have our product launch. So absolutely funding.
Yeah, and the producers seem to have challenges making the stuff work.
Yeah, everyone's
especially
really
here in Sweden.
struggling with maintaining these facilities.
Yeah. Thanks.
I was also going to say funding, but then I'll talk about kind of the balancing act of who is experiencing the pain and who is actually the buying customer. So how do you kind of deal with that B2B, B2C aspect at the same time and still build your traction with slow B2B sales cycles? Yeah.
Super. Very interesting, very impressive. I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions from the auditorium here. I mean, we're looking at the future here, guys. So what can we learn? Everyone is stunned with awe, you know. Yeah. Yes, let's.
It's edible, so you could keep it on, but it's chitin that's been used eaten in both in Thailand and like this, like a pill, and you can find it in how do you say, like in food supplements and kosttillskott.
Yes.
Yeah.
What we in Sweden call kosttillskott.
What's the English word for it? Supplements. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah. But you can easily wash it off also by water. Thank you.
Any final comment or question?
I have one, in fact. Can I ask? Am I allowed to ask as a
Well,
moderator?
you're the boss. I'm just your humble servant. So
the question I have is that these are fantastic ideas, all of them. Very often, especially when we are at universities, or in a small young group, we discuss a lot of ideas. A lot of it kind of gets down the drain. How did you guys, and all of you look young to me, but how did you guys actually actualize the idea? But very, very quickly, if you all can sort of give quick answers on that and enlighten us.
I was very lucky. So I came into a group where they have a lot of startups, and my professor and researcher asked me, Michael, do you want to make a startup company? And that's been a dream for me. So of course. And then I was really happy it's also been in sustainability. So I was just lucky, and I think lucky is what you need also in life a bit.
Yeah. So it was just the entrepreneurial spirit rather than the coating.
For us, I would say that we come from two perspectives. So both as the problem owner, really feeling the pain from the customer's point of view, and then just the really shared values of the core team and a clear vision has enabled that kind of sense of urgency.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I'm coming from passion, having experience and being a migrant for so long, and also throughout my career, having been through that journey. I knew I always wanted to have a company of my own, but I just wanted to make sure it was something I am really, really passionate about. And yeah, Moai happened because it felt like exactly the problem I wanted to solve. Yeah.
Super. I'm sure you will all be haunted and chased by success and happiness and good fortune. So good luck and thank you for a very vivid presentations. Thank you. Time flies, and I think it's time to wrap up, isn't it? Do you want to take over?
Thank you so much, Jacob. And
My
as
pleasure.
always, a
Thank
very
you.
energetic session. So thanks a lot. And thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for such a fantastic presentation. So it's time for us to wrap up Engaging India at Almedalen, the 5th edition. May I invite first Swami on stage and then Uwe together with Swami and for the final sort of conclusion and your thoughts as well.
Thank you so much for staying around, and it's been a long day. I hope it was useful and engaging, and there were quite a few interesting insights. I enjoyed it for sure. And I must sort of go ahead and point out Jacob. Jacob and I have a tradition of stealing each other's punchlines. So, Jacob took away look, I started with a cliche in the morning, so I wanted to sort of end with a cliche, and that was called as the Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones gather no moss, but Jacob used that, so that's how it is, right? So we are colleagues and we keep stealing each other's punchlines. But I wanted to sort of probably take 3-4 minutes trying to help everyone understand where we come from, where we are today, and where we would like to go forward. So I started with a cliche in the morning, and I will start with a cliche again. I don't have time to change my script, so to speak. But the idea was that there is an English saying that rolling stone gathers no moss, and Mick Jagger, of course, is known. But from a sustainability and a climate action perspective, the more that I engage with it, the more we together engage with it, I realize that this is a rolling stone that needs to gather more and more moss. It's a flip of the script, because if you don't gather moss, if you don't go ahead and gather more people, more ideas, more viewpoints, more perspectives, more regions, more countries, more use cases, more complex challenges, then you're going to be a stone that might as well become a bulldozer and a juggernaut and have one single path. And having one single path never works for anyone or for people, because people are diverse, they come from different perspectives, they have different ways of looking at life. And that sort of always goes back to a point that Raine and I, we've now been discussing it for 3 years, saying that what's the definition of sustainability and sustainable development? We still don't know. Maybe there are multiple definitions of sustainability and sustainable development, and that's exactly one of the ways to move forward, probably. Engaging India at Almedalen, as I said in the morning, started with a conversation with Uwe, where we discovered that both the Swedes and the Indians sort of take their shoes off before entering everyone's homes. And then we said that we share a lot more with each other than differences. I'm still convinced about that fact. It's 5 years. So to the extent of going ahead and taking things forward, I see Engaging India at Almedalen as something that is no longer needs to be confined only to Almedalen. It needs to be taken to other areas. So we're looking at things like Engaging India at Stockholm, Engaging India at Luleå, at Malmo, at Lund, at Bangalore, at Delhi, etc. So the idea of going ahead and engaging people from different communities, from different countries, to bring in that different perspective is what we are hoping to sort of move forward. It is what would be what could in consulting terms be called as a low bono, pro bono effort. So it is pro bono from our side. We put in a lot of time and energy, and we intend to keep it that way, more or less. But we are looking forward to going ahead and taking this idea to other places. So hence, I'll stop again before I give it to Uwe. One final point. This is a rolling stone that's going to gather more and more moss, become softer, gentler, bring in different perspectives, and then move towards sustainability and climate action. Thank you so much. Uwe, over to you.
Thank you. It's not quite an easy task to sum up what we heard today, but I've collected some words and some ideas. First, I would like to return to the idea of the listening, the sculpture which was inaugurated yesterday. It's about bowing to the earth and bending down towards the soil to become grounded, earthed in a sense, and listening. So I think the seminars here is really very much about that, listening to each other, and then to make actually a sort of a bow to the world and take in that we don't know it all. We don't have the solutions. We will not make it ourselves. We will have to share what we know with others all the time. And that, I think, is one of the main points, of course, of this and many other seminars around here, because this is what Almedalen Week is all about. What we have heard about is the importance of thinking about what a word has brought up many times, or alluded at, mind and the mindsets, and value, which Rainer brought up. Philosophy, we heard, was brought into the discussion also in the beginning. It's all about philosophy, with one of the introductions we heard. How we think about it. These are the cognitive structures. We need to think more, I think, not only on structural levels of enterprises or business or water management, but also the cognitive structures that deal with all this. It's all about the mind. So the bottom line of innovation, we heard Mahir say, is not necessarily profit, but planet and purpose. So this is about changing a type of mindset where we are now and where we must go. And so this I will take as an outcome of this for myself, of this seminar here. Another interesting and big topic or big area is relations. We heard, I think one of the ideas that many has spoken about is the importance of setting up relations, and they need to be creative and they need to be symmetric, and fairness and just transitions. The transition to sustainability must become fair in from whatever point of view you're looking at it. Fairness is not an easy thing, and there need to be just. So these are, of course, a name for type of relations that we discuss among each other. The outcome, fairness, is not measurable. It's an outcome of discussion. So we need to address that separately as a special. So the relations we make when we are changing our mindset, the relations we foster, they need to be of a certain character, of a certain quality, and this is we need to focus on that, I would think. Technology, we have heard lots about technology and technological solutions. One outcome, I think, here is from Thor. He said that technical solutions are necessary, but not sufficient, he said. I think that I will take that also to my heart. I think that's very true, because technical solutions are without the mindset or the relations, that they might not get us where we must go. And we heard also that from Gunilla, for example, and some of the others also, that looking at the solution and looking at the solution of a problem from many different angles might turn up to be to become multiple solutions for multiple problems. So reusing a solution from different angles and attacking different kind of things, as we heard about the windmills that could be fostering maybe mussels or algae or something, you know. This is a very good. So being multiple, looking at multiple things, multiple purposes is necessary, and that sets us back to mindsets. We need to step out our boxes and to look at it again from many different angles. That is the most difficult, perhaps very difficult. We also heard that there is a need for solutions, but that we might need to step modernity, whatever that means. The modern period looked at general big solutions for big problems in a very general level. Now we're heading towards what I hear, specific solutions for specific problems, like biologics and that kind of thing. And that is a road I think we need to look at, and how these solutions can be used also in other areas is, of course, and then a very important thing. When it comes to scaling, scaling is often possible, but what I heard from here, which many underline, scale and you especially, scale and size is not the same thing. Scaling can mean distribution of ideas through networks on a very basic level. It doesn't necessarily mean size or profit or big industries. It can mean a lot of different things. Also, what I take in is, of course, very. I quoted it here, but climate change is happening irrespective of who we are or where we are. Yeah, and there is one global future. We need to reflect on that, I think, all of us. And to come to the end now, this is my take also here, that many of us have stressed here the urgency of the situation now, especially for climate change. It's urgent, but urgency is not a good partner. It's not a good company for activists or for activism or for action, because we need to think before of what will happen after. And to think, it makes better sense in Swedish. Tänka efter, före. But anyway, that part of the thinking is not very well fit to urgency. Urgency might put us in a place where we need to act now, or it will be too late. This is a risky position, because when we act, we need to focus on what will happen with this activism or with these actions, because in the end, entropy is the bottom line of everything in the world. Counterproduction is the partner of entropy. Everything that can happen will happen. We learn from those who study universe and so on. Everything that can happen will happen somewhere and sometime in one or more of the 11 or 14 dimensions of the world, which there is where I get lost anyway. But counterproduction is here to stay. Counterproduction is also scalable. Counterproduction is inevitably part of everything, all the time, everywhere. That's why action needs to be counterproductive. So we need to think before what comes after. Tänka efter, före in Swedish. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, fantastic as always, Uwe. You sum it up so beautifully. And thank you so much, Swami, as well, for showing us the future path of where Engaging India at Almedalen and Engaging India can go. We will close the seminar, but not without thanking the entire team. We've had a very, very good team and very fun, dedicated team who you see there on our screen. If I can just call them out by name: Abhinav, Ashok, Jessica, Adaman, Isha, Mark, Presi, Akash, Ganesh, Pooja, Prasanna. Thank you so much, all of you all as well. This couldn't have happened without you. And thank you to our audience for joining us. Thanks.